this high-level meeting a success. It has been a norm for us as the Uganda Human Rights Institution to annually lead in commemorating activities for this day. This year's commemoration is unique in that we are marking 75 whole years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's also one of a kind, for it's the first in many years when we are holding this day without some of our previous partners who we used to organize this activity with, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights in Uganda office. We had for long tagged side by side in many ways, and they had become synonymous with this day. But we wish to recognize their time and work with us here in Uganda. We can only say adieu, UHRC. We are glad, though, that in their absence, many equally passionate and committed partners have joined us to further the message about this very important document, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the entire human rights agenda. The importance of this commemoration cannot be overstated, as it's one of the various mechanisms through which the Commission fulfills part of its mandate under Article 52, 1H of the Constitution, which provides for monitoring government's compliance with its international treaty conventions, obligations on human rights. This cannot be achieved without the support of each one of you here today. This commemoration activity is also used by the Uganda Human Rights Commission, our partners in the human rights world, stakeholders and rights holders generally, as a self-reflection mechanism to annually self-evaluate ourselves, to identify the gains and challenges in the commemorative year, and lay strategies for better human rights redress mechanisms in the following year. This multi-stakeholder national public dialogue is therefore part of a self-evaluation and reflection of the mechanisms, not just for us as the human rights fraternity, but all duty bearers and rights holders generally. As we mark 75 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we deem it fit excuse me. As we mark these 75 years, we deem it fit to have a forum like this one where different stakeholders can paint for us a picture of Uganda's UDHR and human rights journey thus far, with a highlight on access to justice for women. Both the international theme, dignity, freedom, and justice for all, and our local national theme, UDHR at 75, evaluating Uganda's progress in the protection and promotion of human rights, are instructive on the progressiveness of the journey towards attaining human rights, a human rights violation-free society. The eminent persons for today's discussions have been carefully selected and assigned equally befitting tasks to be able to nourish us, trigger our thinking and perspective on human rights in Uganda. I therefore urge all of us today to pay keen attention and make very good use of the notebooks and pens provided for lifting, for the life-lifting, life-changing, well-researched presentations and arguments that are worth the 75 years' wait. Before I conclude, I wish to take a few minutes to highlight some of the build-up activities we have had and undertaken together with our partners to mobilize and create momentum towards this main dialogue event. We held a joint press conference on Wednesday, the 6th December. And on this note, I wish to especially thank the CEO, African Center for Treatment and Rehabilitation of Torture Victims, Mr. Samuel Herbert Nsubuga, I believe is here. We recognize you. The Executive Director, Justice Access Point, Mr. Mohammed Ndifuna, I also believe he should be here. We recognize you. The Coordinator of Programs at Avocat Sans Frontier, Uganda, for personally turning up and co-addressing this press conference. We recognize and thank you, Advocates Sans Frontiers. Secondly, we have held several radio talk shows in Kampala and Gulu, supported by the Justice Access Point and ACTV, as well as in Mpigi District, supported by the German Development Corporation Agency, GIZ. We have also developed a podcast that has been running since last week about this day, courtesy of our partner, JAP, in addition to several other media interviews. We thank GIZ and the partners who have been involved in this. We have held 3 community barazas in Mpigi District, particularly in 3 fishing communities in Buama sub-county. These have been supported by us and our other partner, GIZ, Uganda. We therefore wish to once again thank the government of Uganda for an enabling environment that is necessitating us to gather here today, and all partners, as ASF, UNFPA, GIZ, GAP, active for the financial and technical support in this eventful commemoration. I would like to specially appreciate the members of the Commission, the Secretary, Directors, and staff for the solidarity and teamwork that has continually enabled us to rise above our challenges and deliver to the dot whenever duty demands. As I conclude, the Right Honorable Chief Justice, we thank you for making time off this very busy schedule to agree to make research and deliver a keynote address to us. As a national human rights institution, our collaboration and coordination with the arm of government you lead, in as far as the protection and promotion of human rights is concerned, is so dear to our work, and we can only ask for more and stronger collaboration. In the same vein, I'm profoundly delighted that the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker of Parliament accepted to come to this function, and like I said, we still expect him. We do appreciate the Honorable Deputy Speaker for this accepting to be with us. Whereas we are constitutionally mandated to present our annual reports to this legislative arm, we do not take the presence and the acceptance of Parliament to join us for granted. It is the passion, commitment of Parliament with us to relegate some activities in favor of another. The very meeting going on this morning between the Speaker and our chairperson and other key members of that arm of government I talked about is testimony that we need to work together. We are happy to be hosting this occasion today. Now, on this day, we come to commit ourselves and dedicate ourselves to promoting human rights. We have got from you stakeholders on many occasions commitment, and we work with you. We thank you for the work you're doing together with us. And we call on the other arms of government who have also committed, like Parliament and the Executive, which has committed to working with us, to, from this date, also make additional commitment to provide support, increased support to the Uganda Human Rights Commission, like has been promised by the Committee of Parliament on Human Rights and other offices. I thank you, and with pleasure, I would now like to conclude, and Madam Master of Ceremonies, I request you to take over, because you didn't ask me to invite anybody.
Yes.
So you come and continue with your duties. I thank you all, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you for warmly welcoming us. That's Commissioner Omara. He is standing in for the Chairperson of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Thank you, Chairperson, for framing and helping us understand why we are here. We are commemorating the International Human Rights Day. It was yesterday, actually, the 10th of December, but because it was a Sunday, so we moved it today to 11th of December. Thank you very much, Chairperson. And just to remind ourselves, our theme for the day is right there. We are evaluating Uganda's progress in the protection and promotion of human rights, but celebrating also 75 full years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Without much ado, I would now like to invite Laura Criado. I hope I pronounced that right. Please join me in welcoming Laura. Laura is the program coordinator, UNFPA in Uganda. Laura, that clap, we are clapping, not clapping. We are now clapping. Laura, please welcome us.
Right Honorable Deputy Chief Justice Richard Batera, the representative from the Uganda Human Rights Commission, the commissioner. I think we don't have the chief guest and the country director for Avocats Sans Frontières yet. Allow me to recognize His Excellency, the German Ambassador Matthias Schauer, and also senior government officials here present. Also my Lord, Justice Batema, and other members of the judiciary, UN colleagues, representatives from civil society organizations, religious and cultural leaders, members of the press, distinguished guests, all protocols observed, and good morning to all. Before I read the speech on behalf of our country representative from UNFPA, Gift Malunga, I am Laura Criado, I'm the program coordinator, and I'm delighted to be here with you to commemorate the 75 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And allow me to start appreciating our partnership with the Uganda Human Rights Commission, being the key coordinator for this event and for this commemoration. We have, as UN family, but especially as UNFPA, a long partnership to ensure that the capacities are built and the human rights are guaranteed in Uganda. Still, we have a way to go. And also our partnership with the judiciary, and I'm sure that we will hear more from Justice Bandadi's rights. The government of Uganda has been consistent in its pursuit for gender equality and empowerment for women. Government of Uganda is a signatory to several international conventions, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, that it's particularly important for the theme today on access to justice for women. These instruments mandate the government of Uganda to take deliberate measures towards addressing existing gender inequalities, equalize opportunities, and empower women to realize their rights and full potentials. The obligations to the provision of the CEDAW, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, are firmly embedded in the legal, policy, and planning framework of the country. Starting with the 1995 Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, provides the overall legal framework for gender equality and equity. It recognizes equality between women and men and outlaws any form of discrimination. On top of it, in 2010, that allow us to recognize the Equal Opportunity Act was enacted to give effect to the state's constitutional mandate to eliminate discrimination and inequalities against any individual or group of persons on the ground of sex, age, race, color, ethnic origin, tribe, birth, creed or religion, health status, social or economic standing, political opinion or disability, and take affirmative action in favor of groups marginalized on the basis of gender, sex, age, disability, or any other reason created by history, tradition, or custom for the purpose of redressing imbalances which exist against them, and to provide for other related matters. These provisions are now integrated into Uganda Vision 2040 and the Third National Development Plan, number 3. Today, however, we face a global crisis with political tensions within and between states, and also in Uganda. The search for gender justice can often seem elusive or can be deprioritized. In turn, the commemoration of the 16 days of activism, and especially the commemoration of the human rights yesterday, the 10th of December, has been a critical catalyst to create awareness and social support to eliminate all forms of discrimination against women. The commemoration of Human Rights Day especially give us the opportunity to remind the state obligations on women's rights. I am convinced that the human rights ideal has been one of the most animating, inspiring, and constructive movements of ideas in human story, and demonstrably one of the most impactful. As UNFPA, we are the UN agency leading on sexual reproductive health and rights, which often are violated when women are not able to make their own choices about their bodies and are impacted by gender norms and harmful practices. In addition, often women face gender-based violence when exercising their sexual reproductive health and rights. For example, when accessing family planning to space the children. And allow me to here share an example of a young woman that was 22 years old, and she died when she was delivering her fifth child when 22 years old. So this is one of the cases where we see gender-based violence by the different stakeholders when we don't support with the services of those women to space the children. The 1994 International Conference on Population and Development, what we call ICPD, the resulting program of action effectively redirected the international discourse on population and development, previously focused on achieving certain demographic goals. The new paradigm emphasized population welfare and individual rights and choices as prerequisites for achieving human rights, as per the Comment 22, Article 12, on the right to states, legislative, policy, and other measures to give effect to such rights. States should develop the legislation and public policies that explicitly include and protect these rights, and create and implement comprehensive national strategies to protect sexual and reproductive health. States' obligation to respect, protect, and fulfill human rights should guide the development of laws and policies as well as practices. However, in Uganda, as we saw by the Uganda Demographic Health Survey preliminary results 2022 that were launched in September this year, and we will have the detailed report soon, hopefully at the end of the month. We have seen that despite improvements on the maternal mortality rate that has decreased almost half since 2016, there are other indicators related to those women's rights that are still stagnated. We have seen teenage pregnancy stagnated at 24% the last 20 years. 20 years of the Uganda Demographic Health Survey, that we have a 24% teenage pregnancy. The same for family planning indicators. That means that we have still a way to go. Simply repeating the same approaches and expecting different results is unsustainable and ineffective. A recent field mission as UNFPA with other development partners in Ayumani highlighted the heartbreaking reality of those challenges. For example, a young nurse recounted her experience of saving the life of a 13-year-old girl who arrived bleeding after failed unsafe abortion. And this is a failure of providing the services to the girls and their needs. Or a 20-year-old that died when delivering the first child. These incidents are a stark reminder of the 10% of maternal deaths occurring in Uganda, and all of them are preventable. A deeper examination of this girl's life revealed a complex web of social, ecological, or economic challenges contributed to her early pregnancy. We must therefore acknowledge that addressing those rights extend beyond the Ministry of Health and the safe motherhood community to encompass other multi-stakeholders such as Ministry of Education and Ministry of Gender, as well as the private sector, to just mention a few. And in this regard, the Human Rights Commission has been a key ally to ensure that there are qualitative and quantitative reports with data collection at the field level to understand what are the root causes and hold the ministries accountable for those maternal deaths. The failure to work effectively together is not only costing Uganda, but it's also exacting a heavy toll on women, particularly young girls. They are paying the ultimate price. We can no longer afford to work in isolation. Collaborative efforts that extend beyond the health sector are imperative to expedite the achievement of improved health indicators and subsequently the SDGs and Uganda's Vision 2040. ICPD will celebrate 30 years next year in 2024, and also the 10 years of the Addis Ababa Declaration on Population and Development for the African Union. And government of Uganda submitted already the 10 years report to the African Union a few months ago. Global dialogues focusing on youth, technological change, and or demographic diversity are organized to spark conversations among multiple actors and experts. In order to better understand the pushback against elements of the ICP agenda that we see globally and in Uganda, and to build a global knowledge base to support delivering on the ICP agenda, these dialogues will be crucial momentum to reinvigorate and expand the ICPD community to have greater impact and build a strong political will around the ICPD agenda beyond 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I implore the government and all stakeholders to guarantee the right of autonomy and to be free from discrimination by taking measures such as implementing laws and policies, prohibiting discrimination in the provision of the reproductive health services, and removing barriers to accessing contraception, especially for the most vulnerable groups that are facing this discrimination. Ensure sexual and reproductive health information and services are available, accessible, and acceptable and good quality by, especially for adolescent girls. We should not be making decisions on their behalf. They should have the information and be empowered to make their own choices. Guarantee comprehensive reproductive health care is affordable, geographically accessible, and administered without discrimination, stigma, or maltreatment. Guaranteeing adolescents the right to full and accurate information on sexual and reproductive health, including sexuality education. Monitoring and regulating conscientious objection to ensure its invocation doesn't prevent women from accessing comprehensive reproductive health care. Take bold action against negative social and cultural norms, such as child marriage and child motherhood, which have dire consequences to realize their full potential. This is particularly important for cultural and religious leaders, parliamentarians, and civil society. And roll out the male engagement strategy and expand male action groups to promote gender equality, a factor closely linked to maternal and newborn health. As I conclude, I would like to begin by extending my congratulations to the government of Uganda again for their commendable achievements in reducing maternal mortality, as evidenced in the recently released Uganda Demographic and Health Survey. UNFPA stands with the government of Uganda, committed to doing everything within our power to ensure that women and girls will not only live free from violence, but also thrive, so that together we can realize our 2040 vision. I thank you, all.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much, Laura. That was Laura Criado, Program Coordinator, UNFPA. Thank you, Laura, for doing good justice to part of the theme, access to justice for women, but also on gender equality. Thank you so much, Laura, UNFPA. Partner, Uganda Human Rights Commission. Next is Irene. Irene is here now. Miss Irene Winnie Anjing. Please join me in welcoming Irene. Irene is the ASF Country Director and one of the partners of the Uganda Human Rights Commission organizing this high-level multi-stakeholder national public dialogue. Please join me in our usual style in welcoming Irene. Irene, you're welcome. It's yours. Oops, sorry.
Thank you, Sheila. I would like to associate myself with all the protocol earlier observed in the interest of time. I would like to thank you all for making the time to come and attend this commemoration of UDHR at 75 under the theme already mentioned, access to justice for women. Just in a minute about Avocats and Frontier. I hope I pronounce the French words as exact as I have tried. It is an independent international organization with a mission to contribute to establishment of institutions and mechanisms that allow for access to justice. And we have been in operation in Uganda since 2007. The UDHR, a now 75-year-old document, adopted on the 10th December 1948, is a foundation document for human rights movement in the world. As such, Uganda joining the rest of the world in its commemoration is very indicative of our country's commitment towards human rights protection and promotion. The theme of this dialogue, access to justice for women, under the broader theme of the 16 days of activism, Unite, Invest to Prevent Violence Against Women and Girls, is very timely, but is also telling of the need for a continued investment for a complete elimination of violence against women and girls. In Uganda, like many other parts of the world, gender-based violence is an everyday threat for women and girls. It is estimated that almost half of women between ages 15 to 49 have or will experience intimate partner violence or sexual gender-based violence at least once in their lifetime. This reality comes with challenges, top of which includes access to justice for women and majority of Ugandans. So majority of Ugandans, unfortunately, see domestic violence as a private matter that should be handled within the family rather than a criminal matter that should be handled, that requires involvement of law enforcement agencies. The true extent of gender-based violence is therefore unknown because of these many privatization of gender-based violence, but also attacks on girls, women are never reported. Some of the reasons include fear of the attacker, fear of negative responses by others, or even the belief that the authorities will not take the cases seriously. Uganda's legal policy commitment towards ending gender-based violence is without a doubt. Very demonstrably, we have ratified the CEDAW, and also on the basis of our 1995 constitution that is very, very progressive, there have been several policies, guidelines, national action plans, but also strategies on gender-based violence, including towards its prevention, its response, and also providing a framework for gender-responsive programming across the different sectors, not only within our government, but also with the development partners. Some of these laws include, among others, the prohibition of female genital mutilation, the Act of 2010, Domestic Violence Act, Prevention of Trafficking in Persons Act, the Uganda Gender Policy, and the National Policy on Elimination of Gender-Based Violence. But what should be noted is that even with these policies, full equality, both substantive and formal, for women and girls has not been achieved. So as we dialogue today, I would invite us to critically reflect on our 75 years of UDHR. And in light of the theme, Invest to Prevent Violence Against Women, our call for action today is for our government to, among others, accelerate the establishment of specific divisions of the High Court to consider cases of gender-based violence against women, and to also institutionalize the good practice of High Court special sessions, especially for gender violence victims, and to adopt the legal aid bill without any further delay. This will help to provide legal aid for the majority of our women who no doubt do not have sufficient means to afford legal counsel. Also to adopt the sexual offences bill without a delay, and amend specific provisions of the penal code, very, very specifically, those that criminalize marital rape. And this, of course, will provide a basis that violence or sexual violence against women without their consent is addressed to its full extent. And as ASF, we're very committed to gender equality, and of course would like to thank the Royal Kingdom of the Embassy of Netherlands for their financial support towards our FAITH project, that is from access to equality. Now, in a minute, the FAITH project is a consortium project with organizations including Uganda Women's Network, Barefoot Law, Penal Reform International, with our interventions of empowering women and girls to pursue justice in an environment that serves their needs, and more specifically, we focus on empowering women and girls to be able to, or to be in position to demand justice, but also to involve and dialogue with duty bearers and decision makers to be responsive when these demands are placed. So we want to thank the Royal Kingdom of the Netherlands for their financial support for that, but would like to also today in a special way appreciate all of you, all the civil society here, all the development partners who are here, who have committed resources not only to this dialogue, but in your own way through your respective programs dedicated and invested to eradicate violence against women and girls. And as the theme stands, we call again that let's unite, let's invest to eradicate, eliminate violence for our girls and for our mothers. I thank you all.
Thank you so much, Irene. Thank you again for thrusting the theme of the day. We're celebrating 75 years with the UDHR, but focusing also on access to justice. Ms. Tamulekwa Leonard, you're very welcome, the Secretary Electoral Commission. Join me in welcoming the Secretary Electoral Commission. Thank you so much, Ms. Tamulekwa, for coming. I would like in a special way to invite His Excellency, the Ambassador, German Ambassador to Uganda, Your Excellency Matthias Schauer. I hope I got that name right. Please join me in welcoming His Excellency. Now, through the German Embassy, GIZ is supported financially under the program, the Governance and Civil Society Program, to work and support the Uganda Human Rights Commission. 4 years has been going on for very many years. So, Your Excellency, this is your space. Thank you for the support through the German Embassy, through GIZ, through the Civil Society Program, to the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Please make your remarks, Your Excellency.
Your Lordship, the Deputy Chief Justice Richard Butera, dear Commissioner of the Uganda Human Rights Commission, Peter Omara, dear representative of UNFPA, of Avocats Sans Frontières, Secretary General of the Electoral Commission, distinguished guests, Mwasuzumutya Mwebale Okunchaza. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to celebrate 75 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I believe that the world owes quite a lot to this august document. This is because it gives extremely important guidelines, and especially it serves as a firm foundation that was established by our grandmothers and grandfathers and that we can still refer to today. Unfortunately, when it was drafted, there were not so many grandmothers involved in drafting it, but at least they were able to achieve a change in the wording. Originally, it was meant to, the article, I think 2 it is, all men, but now it reads all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. And the declaration also states that everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, and that explicitly includes sex. If you go through the declaration, you will find some articles that describe very important goals that we must continue to strive for with all our energy, but that are sometimes not easy to achieve everywhere in the world. One example is Article 25, the right of a person to a standard of living adequate for their health and well-being, including food, clothing, housing, medical care, necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his control. But when it comes to equal rights for women, this is at the core of the declaration. This is something that has been accepted as a firm principle by the vast majority of the countries across the globe, something that almost everybody agrees on. However, if you look around, you see a rather sad picture. That is, this principle of gender equality is not really being implemented. In many countries around the world, women are not living free from violence and discrimination. They are not enjoying equal access to education. They cannot inherit property, and they do not earn an equal wage. And I'm not only speaking about the Taliban in Afghanistan, I'm also speaking about societies in industrialized countries, including my own, where women are, for instance, not receiving, always receiving the same pay while doing the same work as men, and where domestic violence against women remains a very serious problem. That means that implementing women's rights remains a task that we all have to tackle, and we will only make noticeable progress if we approach it in a holistic way. In our perceptions, our thinking, our daily work, in education, and also in our foreign relations. Germany is taking this very seriously, and our Minister for Foreign Affairs, Ms. Annalena Baerbock, and our Minister for Economic Cooperation and Development, Ms. Svenja Schulze, have developed both a concept for feminist foreign policy and for feminist development policy. At first, that might sound a bit unusual, but when you take a closer look, it actually makes a lot of sense. Let me briefly quote my Minister Annalena Baerbock. Feminist foreign policy is grounded in the conviction that all people enjoy the same rights and deserve the same freedoms and opportunities. This is a fundamental fairness issue, a justice issue. Feminist foreign policy also rests on the understanding that societies are more peaceful and more prosperous if all people are able to participate in political, social, and economic life. Feminist foreign policy seeks to achieve gender equality worldwide. It seeks to advance this in quantifiable terms. It seeks to guarantee that all people have equal representation in all areas of life. It seeks to ensure that everyone has equal access to resources, and that, of course, includes justice. We know that peace and security are more sustainable when decision processes concerning security policy are inclusive by design. Greater participation by women brings greater security. The same applies with regard to the economic development of a country, or of the whole world, actually. Economists have estimated that the global growth entailed by the equitable participation of women in the worldwide labor market alone would be up by 26% in only 3 years. From tackling the climate crisis to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, We will only solve the great challenges of our era if all people have a hand in shaping the solution. Consequently, we have to advocate worldwide for an end to discrimination and to do our part towards equitable social, economic, and political participation. We consider this to be a compass both for our bilateral relations with other countries and for our activities in international organizations. That's part of what my minister said. Now, to be a bit more specific, the main goals of feminist foreign policy and development policy can be represented by the 3 R's: rights, representation, and resources. Concerning the rights, we advocate for the rights of women and girls to be respected and promoted worldwide. In many countries, unfortunately, there are still gaps in the legal framework, although 189 states have now ratified the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, and thus committed to fostering gender equality before the law and in practice. But as I said, there are gaps. For instance, 86 countries obstruct women by law from practicing certain professions. 46 countries lack any laws protecting women from workplace sexual harassment. Some 42 countries do not provide for any legal protection against the dismissal of pregnant employees. According to a study by UN Women, 600 million women live in countries that do not penalize domestic violence. In Germany, too, more action still needs to be taken, for example, with regard to safeguarding women's right to protection from violence. Coming to representation, we advocate for the equitable participation of women in all areas of society and are bolstering the representation of women and marginalized groups in foreign policy. Almost everywhere, women and marginalized groups are underrepresented in political, economic, and social decision-making processes. This is true worldwide, including Germany. For example, in the German parliament, called the Bundestag, we only have 35% women, and that ranks us on the 44th among the world's legislatures. Number 1 in the world's legislatures is your neighbor, Rwanda, by the way, with a 61%. Concerning resources, we campaign for women and marginalized groups to have equal access to resources, from financial and labor and natural resources to immaterial resources, such as education, justice, and to various networks. Lack of access is one of the most significant causes of poverty and marginalization. In numerous countries, for example, women and marginalized groups do not have equal access to the labor market. Now, if you think about it carefully, you will realize, whatever you're doing, every budget, every promotion of foreign trade and investment, every climate change package has a gender-specific aspect and impact. In a nutshell, we have come quite a long way in the last 75 years, but we are not nearly where we want to be concerning gender equality. We need to broaden our perspective and become more aware of all the areas where discrimination against women still takes place, where it is obvious, also where it is more subtle and has gone unnoticed so far. I think this is what we owe to our forefathers and mothers who have drafted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And to come to a close, if you look at all the huge problems humanity is facing today, we simply cannot afford not to make full use of the full potential of half of the world's population. Thank you very much. Webalinyo.
Webalinyo sebo webalide dala. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Thank you so much for that moving speech, but also sharing with us your international policy in Uganda and globally. Thank you so much. As we prepare to receive our keynote speaker, His Lordship, the Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of Uganda, His Lordship, the Honorable Mr. Richard Butera, I would like to invite the chairperson, acting chairperson of the Uganda Human Rights Commission, Commissioner O'Mara. You are going to introduce our keynote speaker, and you're going to invite him to make his keynote address. But in the meantime, my Lord, we have more embassies in the house. We have the Belgium embassy. We have the EU delegation here, my Lord. We have the embassy, German embassy, French embassy. Our GIZ colleagues are also here. We also have, my Lord, UN agencies in the house as well. We have our jealous friends. We used to call them jealous. Musa, now I think it's governance and security program. We are getting used to that. Thank you so much, all our jealous friends, for being here. We have our government, our ministries and departments and agencies. Thank you so much again for being here. My Lord, we have the Electoral Commission. I introduced the secretary here. We have political parties in the house. We have human rights defenders. Human rights defenders, are you there? Hey, but you have to make some noise. Are you here? Today is International Human Rights Defender Day. Are you here, human rights defenders? Yes, we have them all from all over the country, my Lord, and they're represented here from all sectors. We have Makerere University, and we have Dr. Zahara Nampeo here. She will be discussing the keynote speech. Dr. Zahara, thank you so much for being here. That's Dr. Zahara, my Lord. We have the teams from the organizers, all of you, the UHRC, ASF, JAB, SCTV, thank you so much for making it. My Lord, that is who we are in the house. And of course, the media is in the house, my Lord. Commissioner, it is now your pleasure to invite our keynote speaker. Thank you so much.
MC, indeed, it is my pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, as I proceed to invite the Honorable Chief, the Honorable Deputy Chief Justice, I think it's just in honor and in order that I say something a little bit about him for the members to know who our guest speaker today is. The Honorable Justice Richard Butera is the Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of Uganda and head of the Court of Appeal and the Constitutional Court. The Honorable Justice Richard Butera was appointed by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Uganda to be Deputy Chief Justice of Uganda and head of the Court of Appeal and Constitutional Court in September of 2020. Justice Richard Butera has served in various legal institutions and has held different positions. He served as Justice of the Supreme Court from 2017 to 2020. Prior to that, he had served as Director of Public Prosecution for close to 18 years. He has served as the Chief Registrar for Courts of the Judicature in the early 1990s. He also served as an Inspector of Courts, charged with the duty of monitoring performance and discipline of judicial officers and other court staff. He has earlier served as Chief Magistrate in various magisterial areas of Uganda after rising from the lowest rank of a magistrate, grade 1. He had been an assistant lecturer, research fellow at the Faculty of Law of Makerere University before joining the judiciary. Justice Butera is currently the chairperson of the Case Backlog Committee of the judiciary, charged with the duty of managing case backlog and laying strategies on how to reduce it in the judiciary. The Honorable Justice Richard Butera has over 40 years of experience in the legal profession, and he holds both Bachelor of Laws from Makerere University and a postgraduate diploma in legal practice from the Law Development Center. He is currently pursuing a Master of Laws degree in Alternative Dispute Resolution from the Pepperdine University in Los Angeles, California, the USA. He is the member of top management of the judiciary, and he sits in the Judiciary Council of the judiciary, the top organ of judiciary responsible for making policies for planning and developments in the judiciary. In discharge of his social responsibility, Honorable Justice Butera is passionate about mentoring young lawyers across the country, particularly in government agencies. He's currently the patron of the Association of Uganda Prosecutors, and he's using his experience to mentor, coach, and guide young lawyers on career progression. The Honorable Justice Butera is known for being a good timekeeper, as we have noticed today here, and for being a humble judge who administers justice with meekness and mercy. It is my singular honor and pleasure, therefore, to now invite the Honorable Justice Richard Butera to make his keynote address. Honorable Justice, sir.
Thank you very much. Tomara, representing the chairperson of the Human Rights Commission. Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Germany, Matthias Stuka, Osuzotia, my Lord Justice Patema, and other judicial officers with us here, the country representative of Accra Sun Frontiers, the representatives of the UNFPA, the representatives of political parties, members of the academia, representatives of civil society organizations, all human rights defenders present, representatives from different government departments, members of the press, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm delighted and I feel honored to have been invited to join you on this fine morning to make a keynote address on the International Human Rights Day, when we are commemorating 75 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The presence of so many of us here, representing so many countries, is illustrative of our collective commitment to promotion and protection of human rights in Uganda and in the whole world. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted by the General Assembly on the 10th of December 1948. This was in response to the atrocities witnessed during the Second World War. For the first time in the history of mankind, nations came together in recognition of the dignity of human beings to agree on the content of the human rights for all human beings. They acknowledged the close connection between the violation of human rights and national and international peace. The emphasis through the declaration was on rights and freedoms applicable to everybody and everywhere. On this occasion, we should take stock and examine what has been achieved since the declaration. We should reflect on what needs to be accomplished in the future. The commemoration compels us to reflect on the continuing relevance of the Universal Declaration to the political, social, economic, and cultural environment we live in, and how we can transform its promise into a living reality for all the people in the world in which we live. The commemoration also reminds us of the tenets of the Universal Declaration, in so doing to reaffirm and renew our attachment to these fundamental principles and to this vision. When we observe the society we live in, it's clear that a lot remains to be done in the field of human rights protection and promotion. It is not time yet for us to relax. We have only recently had cases of genocide in our region. We still have wars in the neighborhood. We have displaced people in all regions in the world. Conditions of absolute poverty in the world around us are a cause for shame. These are situations that call for all countries to reconsider their positions and renew their commitments to the promotion of human rights. We all must match our rhetoric with action. The Declaration proclaims in its preamble recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family in the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. Economic, social, and cultural rights are set out with the same degree of affirmation and conviction as civil and political rights. Freedom of speech and belief are enshrined, but also freedom from fear and want. Fair trial and the rights of participatory and representative government sit shoulder to shoulder with the right to work, to equal pay for equal work, and the rights to education. Both sets of rights are proclaimed as the highest aspiration of the common people, or the people. This is where the issue of gender comes in. If we are talking about equal pay, equal education, we have it. We must be honest, however, and recognize that there has been an imbalance in the promotion at the international level of economic, social, and cultural rights and the right to development. Extreme poverty, illiteracy, homelessness, the vulnerability of children to exploitation through trafficking and prostitution are telling indictments of leadership in our world as we end this millennium. And this affects women and children more. The Declaration has exerted a moral, political, and legal influence throughout the world, far beyond the aspirations of its drafters. It has been the primary source of inspiration of all post-war international legislation in the field of human rights. All of the United Nations human rights treaties and resolutions, as well as the regional human rights conventions, the European Union, the European and American conventions, and the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, have been directly inspired by the Declaration. Virtually every international instrument concerned with human rights contains some reference to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Many subsequent declarations of the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted some provisions of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Its detailed provisions have served as a model for domestic constitutions and laws, regulations, and policies that protect human rights. Our 1995 Constitution borrowed a lot from the Declaration. Our courts, and especially the Constitutional Court, like many courts in the world over, have had recourse to provisions of the Declaration in interpretation of provisions of their constitutions and their domestic laws. Parliaments, governments, lawyers, and non-government organizations throughout the world invoke the Declaration when human rights issues are discussed. Many of the provisions of the declarations have become part of the customary international law, which is binding on all states, whether or not they are signatories to one or more multinational conventions concerning human rights. Thus, what started its existence as a solemn but non-binding proclamation of rights and freedoms has at last, in some respect, if not all, acquired through state practice the status of universal law. 20 years after its adoption, its tenets were authoritatively endorsed by the 1968 proclamation of Tehran and transformed into the provisions of the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, both of which entered into force in 1978. It also inspired other world conferences, including the Beijing Platform of Action, re-emphasizing the women's rights, that women's rights are human rights. Indeed, one of the functions of the Office of the Human Rights, of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, established by the General Assembly in 1993, is to promote and protect the rights and freedoms contained inter alia in the Universal Declaration. In short, the Declaration has, since its adoption, assumed the mantle of a constitutional instrument, giving specificity to the concept of human rights in the United Nations Charter and radiating its begging influence throughout the planet. The Uganda perspective on the progress and protection of human rights. The human rights, the UN UDHR was born on 10th December 1948. At that time, Uganda was a colony under British rule. When the British came to Uganda, they found the indigenous people had their own concepts of human rights, which served their own society then. The culture of the Ugandan population was collectivist. The clans and tribes looked to their clan and tribal leaders as protectors of their human rights rather than the individual rights of their members. Tribal and clan leaders were respected and were given special status. Age and gender were special issues. The status of women then was low. People were treated differently in respect of age and their gender. The elders and tribal leaders would resolve disputes and their decisions were respected. Women were not. The community owned land together and tribal leaders were the trustees. The rights of the clan or tribe were more important than the rights of the individual. If there was a marriage, the family and the clan were involved. The women did not choose who to marry. If there was a marriage, the family and the clan were involved. The children belonged to the larger family and to the clan. They were not children of only their father or mother. The community raised the children together. The British came from an individualistic culture where a child is taught from an early age about individual rights. They are taught early in their life that as human beings, they are equal to everybody. Nobody is above or below you. You have to compete and survive as an individual. You have equal rights with everybody else. The child grows up with a universalist attitude where people have to be treated the same as individuals. The individual has rights and pursues his or her rights as an individual. Individual rights are the foundation of human rights. Individual land ownership was introduced by the British in Uganda. An individual gets married to another individual. The marriage or divorce between the two individuals does not concern members of the family, the clan, or the community. The individual human rights of the universalist societies was then introduced in Uganda. The collectivist communities and their concepts of community rights continued to operate in their old setups in families, in clans, and tribes. The conflict of concepts, of understanding the concepts and the ideas of human rights in the collectivist and universalist sense of human rights continues. It continued in the colonial and post-colonial system. It still continues. And this creates conflicts that we still have to attend to. In the view of the little time we have for this presentation, I'll not dwell on the human rights period under the colonial rule. There is literature to show that the UDHR principles were implemented in the country with a cautious passion under the colonial rule. Immediately after Uganda's independence, peace was for a short time, 1962 to 66. 1966, 5 ministers were detained under preventive detention. The Prime Minister took over power from the President under the Pigeonhole Constitution, from which we thereafter got the 1967 Constitution. This governed the country up to the Idi Amin era in 1971. Ministers and the former Prime Minister Benedicto Kiwanuka was detained under the Idi Amin era. He was released and appointed Chief Justice. He was murdered shortly thereafter. And there was short-lived excitement and relief. There was short-lived excitement and relief following the Idi Amin coup. Many people were detained. And a commission of inquiry was established to investigate the murders that took place. The report of the Commission of Inquiry into the Disappearance of Persons in Uganda 1975 is available, and it's good reading for people interested in human rights in Uganda. After that Commission of Inquiry, there was appointed a Commission of Inquiry on violation of human rights that was set up by the NRM government when it came to power in 1986. This is the Justice Odoki Commission. It produced a report, the report on the Commission of Inquiry into Violation of Human Rights 1994. The document recommended that the human rights violations that occurred in Uganda, it gave an account of the violation of human rights that occurred in Uganda between 1962 and 1986. Among its many recommendations, it recommended the adoption of a new constitution and establishment of a human rights commission. This is another document that is of interest to people interested in the issues of human rights in Uganda. After the Justice Odoki Commission, government appointed the after the Justice Oderu Commission, government appointed the Justice Odoki Commission to carry out a study and make recommendations for a new constitution. The commission carried out countrywide consultations on contents of the constitution, and it produced a report. The report on constitution of the Constitutional Commission was of 1995. This one made recommendations for the drafting of the 1995 Constitution. It is this Constitution, the 1995 Constitution, that took up issues of human rights in Uganda. It can be described as a human rights-centered document. Chapter 4 of this Constitution is solely on human rights. It is the longest chapter of the whole Constitution. It borrowed in content a lot from the UDHR. The Constitution created the Human Rights Commission, which is charged with the protection and promotion of human rights in Uganda under Article 51 of the Constitution. The Constitution also gave powers to the Human Rights Commission to protect and promote and protect human rights of all people, and it gave it functions under Article 52, which included to investigate on its own initiative or complaint any violation of human rights. The Commission could visit any jails, prisons, places of detention, assess and inspect conditions of inmates, and make recommendations. The Commission can also recommend to Parliament effective measures to promote human rights, including provision of compensation to victims of violations of human rights or their families. The Commission also has a duty to create and sustain within society the awareness of the provisions of the Constitution. And it has a duty to monitor government compliance with international treaty and convention obligations on human rights. The Constitution under Article 50 gave courts and parliament power to promote and protect human rights. Under the same Article 50, the enforcement of rights by courts was defined. And any person who claims to have a fundamental or other right or freedom guaranteed under the Constitution where it has been infringed or threatened is entitled to apply to court for redress, and the redress may include compensation. And any person or group can claim the right in court, and if is not satisfied with the court's decision, has a right to appeal to a higher court. These powers that were given to court have been used by individuals, by NGOs, by human rights activists to protect the rights of people in the country. Under the same article, clause 4, Parliament of Uganda has been given power to make laws for enforcement of rights and freedoms under the Constitution. The same Constitution has provided specifically for rights of children, for rights of gender equality, for prohibition against discrimination based on on age, gender, and these are rights that are protected by the Constitution and can be enforced by courts. Under the same Constitution, the Constitutional Court is given power under Article 137, Clause 3, to interpret the Constitution. And under the same article, any person may petition the court for a declaration that any act of Parliament or any other law or anything done under the authority or law can be challenged in the Constitutional Court. It is under this article that NGOs, individuals, various institutions have utilized the provisions of the Constitution to challenge acts of Parliament, to challenge actions of government, to challenge whatever sounds unconstitutional and whatever infringes on human rights. In my view, these are provisions that protect everybody and they should be utilized by all of us. The establishment of a robust judicial and legislative system, a predictable election cycle, as well as continuous reporting on international treaty obligations by Human Rights Commission, cement Uganda's strong commitment to safeguarding and upholding the human rights and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR, as a living document 75 years later. The Uganda Human Rights Commission continues to stand as a beacon for human rights protection and promotion, with the UDHR as a guiding post in its work since its inception in 1997. Ladies and gentlemen, my vision of the Human Rights Declaration, however, stays beyond its legal and political influence. The late Nelson Mandela, former president of South Africa, once reminded us that the declaration was adopted only a few months after formation of the first apartheid government. He said, and I quote, "For all the opponents of this pernicious system, The symbol and noble words of Universal Declaration were a sudden ray of hope at one of our darkest moments. During the only many years that followed, this document serves as a shining beacon and an inspiration to many millions of South Africans. It was proof that they were not alone, but rather part of a greater global movement against racism, colonialism, for human rights, peace, and justice. It is often said that rights which exist on paper are of no value. But on paper, vision, commitment, and action are the powerful tools of peace. The pages of Universal Declaration, as Mandela observed, have been a source of courage to the downtrodden by showing them that they are not alone. They also interrogate our sense of solidarity. Notwithstanding the core fact of persistence of human rights violations throughout the world, this document has served and will continue to serve as a reminder that the world community cannot turn a blind eye to the suffering of the oppressed and the destitute, and that it has a mandate to concern itself and, where possible, offer succor beyond all frontiers. Ladies and gentlemen, one need not look further than the preamble of the declaration to realize that while the world around us is evolving at a pace more rapid than any other time in human history, the premises on which the declaration is founded will remain valid and immutable forever. The preamble speaks of barbarous acts which have outraged the conscience of mankind. It points out that it is essential, if man is not to be compelled to have recourse at a last resort to a rebellion against tyranny and oppression, that human rights should be protected by the rule of law. It reminds us of the close connection between human rights observance, and friendly relations between nations. It ends with a phrase that goes to the heart of the commemoration of the 50 years anniversary, that a common understanding of rights and freedoms is of the greatest importance for full realization of this pledge. No one reading these phrases today can fail to be struck by their insight into the connection between denial of human rights and peace, domestic and international, and their enduring actuality. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks to the declaration, human rights have established themselves everywhere as a legitimate political and moral concern. The world community has pledged itself to promote and protect human rights. Ordinary citizens have, in reference to the UDHR, demanded for their rights in all regions of the world. The enforcement of human rights is developing in different parts of the world through effective regional mechanisms. I would venture to suggest that it has become an elevating force on the events of our world because it can be seen to embody the legal, moral, philosophical beliefs held by all peoples because it applies to all. It is precisely this notion of universality in the widest sense that gives it its force. Its universal vocation to protect the dignity of every human being has captured the imagination of humanity. It is this vision that explains the enduring mission of the Declaration and its usurped dominance as a statement of legal principles. We tamper with it at our peril. I would want to conclude and say that and call upon every one of us to uphold the promotion and protection of human rights. It is important that all organs of state, government agencies, civil society, justice actors, and every person upholds the right for promotion of the rule of law and human rights through collaboration, coordination, and supporting each other. Our resolve in the judiciary is to always stand firm in the promotion and protection of human rights. We understand that we cannot go far if we operated alone. We shall continue to work with the Human Rights Commission and its leadership, together with other interests, and together with others interested in the promotion and protection of human rights. We shall continue to work with the Human Rights Commission, and we should all work with them so that they achieve their goal, which is to have a society that respects human rights and fulfills civic obligations. Allow me to congratulate the chairperson of the Human Rights Commission, the country director, Advocacy Sans Frontières, Eileen Winnie Anying, for jointly organizing this high-level public dialogue to mark the International Human Rights Day. I thank both of you for the passion and commitment of enhancing the promotion and protection of human rights. Thank you all for listening to me, for God and my country.
For God and your country. Please stand up and let us really give a big hand clap to our keynote speaker. My Lord, thank you so. That hand clap is not fake. My Lord, this is your hand clap of appreciation. Thank you very much, my Lord. You can take your seats. Thank you very much, my Lord, for taking us through the journey of Uganda and centering your keynote speech within 75 years of the UDHR, evaluating Uganda's progress in the protection and promotion of human rights. Thank you so much, my Lord. We would never have had a better keynote speaker. And of course, my Lord is accompanied by Justice, we call him Lady Justice, but Lady Justice Batema David. Justice Batema David is right there in the corner. Justice, thank you so much for coming. High Court Judge Iganga, thank you so much. Sister Batema is in the house. Thank you so much. My Lord, we are going to treat ourselves to a critique, a polite and simple critique of the keynote address. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Zahara Nampewo, very well known to us. We welcome Dr. Zahara with a hand clap. Dr. Zahara, my Lord, is the Deputy Principal of the School of Law at Makerere University, my Lord. That is Dr. Zahara. Please take the podium, Dr. Zahara. My Lord, when we finish with Dr. Zahara, we'll have a panel discussion, which will be led by Mr. Robert Chirenga. Robert is there. Robert, please stand up. He's the Executive Director of the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders, my Lord, here in Uganda. But we also have our panelists. Sister Batema is here, our panelist. We also have, I've seen our friend, Commissioner Bernard Mujuni. Commissioner, you're very welcome. Please stand up for your recognition. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for coming, as always. And of course, Fatuma Kakoza from Uganda Muslim Lawyers Association. Fatuma, thank you so much for coming. My Lord, we were joined by two commissioners, Commissioner Shifra Lukwago. Commissioner Lukwago, please join me in welcoming Commissioner Lukwago, Uganda Human Rights Commission. And of course, Commissioner Simeo Nsubuga is here in the house as well. Commissioner, thank you so much for coming. Zahara, you're in between time zones. So we'll give you a chance to critique the keynote speech. Thank you so much, Zahara. Microphone.
Thank you very much, Sheila, for your kind words. Please allow me to ride on the protocol already presented by His Lordship here on the floor. It was elaborate. And let me say good morning. I think it is still good morning. Yes, it's getting hot in the tent, but I think it's still good morning. So those in the legal fraternity will know that the Deputy Chief Justice is so high up on the legal ladder that as a member of the bar, I should just come here and say that I concur with everything that you have said, and I have nothing useful to add. My Lord, I do concur. But allow me to say something small this morning as we celebrate 75 years of the UDHR. Now, 75 years is a diamond anniversary. For persons who are 75 years, that means that you have a strong foundation you have a good memory, you have gone through life, you are tried and tested. And that is where we are with the UDHR. Perhaps the instruments are different from human beings. But as my Lordship has said, you can see that the UDHR as an instrument sets a strong foundation of human rights as we are going into the future. The drafting of this instrument, the UDHR, started in 1947, and it declared, as my Lord has emphasized, that all human rights are universal, to be applied the same way, to be enjoyed by all people, no matter who they are, where they live. And it includes all range of human rights: civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. In fact, the words of the UDHR are strength in themselves. The preamble says, "We, the peoples of the United Nations, determine to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person." And those words are very critical. The dignity and worth of the human person in equal rights of men and women, and of nations large and small. We are here as Uganda, Germany is represented, and all the others that we have. And it says that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. My Lord, your presentation was very articulate. It emphasized that all the rights and freedoms in the UDHR should be enjoyed at an equal level, that the UDHR articulates all these as universal values. You also emphasized that the UDHR strengthens the significance of the individual as a subject of international law. Not only groups, and not only majority groups, not only minority groups, but individuals as well. But you are also very critical about the fact that whereas there are rights and freedoms provided in the UDHR, there are also responsibilities of duty bearers, particularly the state, towards individuals. My Lord, your discussion affirms that the doctrine of human rights rests upon a philosophical claim that there is a moral order, an order whose legitimacy precedes contingent social and historical conditions and applies to all human beings everywhere. In fact, your words, my Lord, as you read them out, reminded me of the words of the former president of the Republic of Tanzania in his book, Women's Freedom. Women are not egos, women are egos, not chickens. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, Women's Freedom. Mwalimu Nyerere had no kind words for bride price, for violence against women, for exclusion of women from education and leadership. Today we are talking about access to justice for women. And in fact, your presentation was very key about rights of women as part of humanity. One other thing that the UDHR is particular about is the aspect of interlinkage, interdependence, equality, non-discrimination, and indivisibility of human rights. One of the rights in the UDHR, when we are talking about interdependence and indivisibility, is the right to an adequate standard of living. This 75-year-old instrument provides for this right. And many times we often focus on rights to life, liberty, freedom from torture, and we forget Article 25 of the UDHR. It is also there with us, the right to an adequate standard of living. My Lord, this morning you kept time. Many of us in the room did not. Not because we did not wake up early enough, but because we were struggling and competing with the other road users to be here, this venue. And then we ask ourselves, as we are talking today about the UDHR and 75 years, is it that the roads in Kampala these days spoil after a year or two? Is it that the rains beat harder on the tarmac? Is it that the population has grown too fast, that the cars are more, and therefore the roads get spoiled much faster, but we don't have the technicians to forecast that the population is growing? Is it that there are no options for a 61-year-old nation? Are we too early for a train system for Kampala? As we are talking about the UDHR and 75 years, are we too early at 61 years of Uganda to have a train system for the country? So eventually, as we are going about our work and trying to observe an adequate standard of living in Kampala, we are racing, competing for what is left of the road. We are also experiencing high expenses, in terms of repairing the cars, because you're always repairing the shock absorbers and bushes and Z-links. And because you're also angry with everybody else who's trying to beat the queue and the borders, you get to work and you're angry. You're not calm, you're late, and you actually violate your human right to be happy. Okay? So do you see the interlinkage and interdependence that the UDHR is talking about? And actually, you have eaten into the time of your students. Should have been there 40 minutes, and then the lecture has gone off by 40 minutes. So in a way, all these rights are interlinked. And yet we are talking about the UDHR. Nelson Mandela, the former leader of South Africa, said that to deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity. We focus sometimes on some rights and neglect the others. But this celebration should remind us that all rights are just as important. They should be observed and respected in a holistic manner. I don't want to repeat some of the human rights challenges that we are currently experiencing. My Lord went into that quite thoroughly. But let me just say that today, at 75 years of the UDHR, we are still experiencing 284 cases out of every 100,000 of maternal mortality. They say that having a baby is supposed to be the easiest surgical procedure. You just cut one system from another and the other system is able to coexist, but we still lose mothers because of so many reasons. High infant mortality rate, the fertility rate is so high, at 4.6 births, even higher than our neighbor Kenya, which is a year younger than us in terms of nation rate. So we are still struggling as a country. There are still many things that but that brings about the issue then that regardless of the challenges, there is more work to do. So the Human Rights Commission, all the actors, the human rights defenders, there is more work, there is still more to do. Elie Wiesel, this is a Holocaust survivor who spent his life advocating for human rights, stated that everyone has a role to play in human rights protection. And my Lord has emphasized that just as well, that there is more for us to do as a government, as a commission, as human rights defenders. So there is need for us to continue the process of flagging and discussing key human rights issues in Uganda. And I'm happy that the room is diverse today and we are all talking the language of rights as it should be. My Lord, also you elaborated on some of the things that have been done in the country, the commissions of inquiry. We have not seen some of those reports. We are still calling for those reports so that action can be taken. You've talked about the drafting of the 1995 Constitution, which guarantees a right to a remedy through the courts, and the civil society organizations have taken up that. So there are things that have been done, but still the mantle continues. There are things that we still need to do as human rights defenders, as persons who have a duty, as duty bearers. Therefore, as I wind up, my Lord, because your keynote was very thorough, and Sheila has told me that I'm in between time zones. I don't know whether that is Eastern time and Central African time or something. I take this opportunity to call us to action as we celebrate UDHR at 75. American actor and activist James Baldwin stated that not everything that is faced can be changed. Not everything that is faced can be changed. But nothing can be changed until it is faced. So let us take this opportunity to face what we have to face in order to be able to change it. Thank you very much, Your Lordship, for highlighting many of the human rights violations facing us today, but also reminding us that we need to premise on the UDHR for guidance. As we celebrate the UDHR at 75 years, let's take action, let's face the challenges and deal with them. Thank you very much, my Lord, for your thorough keynote address. And thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zahara, for your thorough and very kind and polite critique. Indeed, my Lord, we concur with what you have said. Zahara, please join the podium. Photographers, we're going to take a picture, my Lord, Your Excellency, Chairperson and Laura. Zahara would like to take a picture of this opening panel before they leave. Photographers, please. My Lord, you can stand up. Your Excellency, Chairperson Laura. Zahara, please join the panel. You can just move a little bit, a step up. Yes. Okay, UDHR. Does that bring a nice smile on the face? 75. Stand nicely. Chairperson, are you ready? Great. 75, all of you. 1, 2, 3, go. 70. The panel. Yes, you have to say 75. My Lord, 75. But you're smiling. 1, 2, 3, go. 75. Great. Nice. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, our opening panel. Thank you so much, photographers. You may take your seats, my Lord. Okay, we'll have a picture with the partners and the panelists. Panelists, please come up as well, because if my Lord goes, then we won't have a picture with him. Bernard, please come up. Bob, please come to the panel. Yes. Your Excellency, we have one more picture with you. My Lord, you can still stay. Chairperson, just one more picture. Zahara, don't leave. Laura, don't leave. Let's have the panelists. Panelists, please come up. Yes, let's take that picture before you leave. And then we'll have the partners. The commissioners, please get ready with the partners. My Lord, Justice Sister Batema, please come up. Great. This is a step. Okay. 75, but with a smile, okay? 1, 2, 3, go. 75. Bob, you're looking at the camera. 75, great. Nice. Okay, that's a nice picture. Okay, great. Let's come down now. Our panelists, you can now take your seats to this table. You'll find new friends on this table as well. Yes. Our panelists, please get to the podium while our opening panel comes down to take their seats. My Lord, your seat is still here. Chairperson, Your Excellency, your seat is still there. No, you can have. Commissioner, your seat is still here. My Lord, your seat is still here. Thank you, Alan, for that. Thank you for the support, Alan. Bob, please come and take your seat with the panelists. Yes, Fatuma, please come and take your seat. It's free sitting. Commissioner Bernard, please come and take your seat. And of course, Sister Batema, please come and take your seat up to the panel. Yes, thank you so much. Tea is still being served. You can stretch a little as the panel gets ready. If you want to take some tea, please pick a cup of tea outside there as the panel gets settled in. Robert, I'll hand over to you. Okay, Bob, you're ready to start?
Thank you. But I
Okay.
see the house is.
Okay, let's whip in a few minutes, 2 minutes.
Let them have their tea.
Okay,
first
can
of all.
pick your tea as
Yeah.
we stretch a little bit. I know we've been here since morning. Thank you for the diaries, the notebooks. We're distributing those in commemoration of 75 years, but also the International Human Rights Day. Sorry. Okay, we are ready to begin. Once the keynote speaker, the Deputy Chief Justice, takes his seat, we shall then start. Okay, let's settle in. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, my Lord. Thank you so much. Chairperson, thank you so much. Your Excellency, thank you so much. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Zahara, for that opening ceremony. Okay, we're ready to start. Bob, okay, 1 minute. Let's just settle in. Good. Okay, Bob, you can do your thing now.
Thank you, Sheila. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to observe all the protocols, including Chief Guest and our guest speaker, the Deputy Chief Justice, Mr. Richard Butera. I would like to recognize also the presence of Justice David Batema, Senior Resident Judge, Iganga Circuit, and our other panelists here. I'd like to recognize Fatuma Kakoza from Civil Society, the Muslim Center for Justice and Law. You're most welcome. Thank you for that correction. Uganda Muslim Lawyers Association. Can you correct this, please? I would also like to welcome my friend David Bernard Mujuni, a Commissioner, Equity and Human Rights, the Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development. I'd like to also welcome other guests who have just joined us in this panel. We are looking at evaluating Uganda's progress in the protection and promotion of human rights, and more specific, attending to access to justice for women. And to give this panel discussion a context, I'll begin with the state actor, because the state has the responsibility, the tripartite obligations of respecting, protecting, and fulfilling human rights. Earlier on, our guest speaker talked about our constitution, and I would like to quote Article 33 of the Constitution that states that women shall be accorded full and equal dignity of the person with men. The same article, sub-article 2, states that the state shall provide the facilities and opportunities to enhance the welfare of women, to enable them to realize their full potential and development. My understanding is that when state shall, that's mandatory. Over to you, Mr. Bernard Mujuni. To what extent has the state of Uganda tried to put in place these different provisions to ensure that women can access justice in this country?
Thank you so much, Robert, for throwing me into the dance hall as the first participant. The question you've asked is quite a $1 million question. You see, as a ministry, Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development is a rights-based ministry, first of all. We are the only ministry that can exist alone, and all other ministries may close and go home. Because all the workers are there, all women are there, all the children are there, the older persons are there, the youth are there. So it's the only ministry that can exist, and we are okay as a country. That being said, and protocol observed, my Lord, Deputy CJ and Justice Batema. Equal pay for equal work, for work of equal value, has been at the core of all the legislations in the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. And we have around 8 robust labor laws, including NSSF. But then there are issues, the fault lines, just which have kept appearing. Recently, we had a report by the Equal Opportunities Commission that exposed some of the issues, unequal pay for work of equal value. And this report discovered that actually 60% of women are in unpaid care work, you know, free labor. And then almost 61%, 59% of the older persons are also involved in unpaid care work. And this is appropriation. This is slavery disguised in modern day slavery. So we know that there are fault lines, and we accept that there is need for redress. But also, it also analyzed that 36% of all the good jobs in governments are occupied by women, despite women being more than 51% in terms of the population numbers. And these are contradictions and paradox situations that we need to focus on. But that notwithstanding, the government has interesting programs, of course, laws, the Equal Opportunities Commission Act, there are so many. We codified CEDAW long time ago, ahead of our peers. Uganda is the 6th country in terms of gender equality. In service, you know, continent, that's not bad. But then we still have challenges, again, artisanal mining, especially women. Last month actually, we had a national conference, a symposium on business and human rights, and one of the key revelations that we were treated to was that some of the women trade sex for gold mining in some of the areas. These are numbers that are not very comfortable, but then we must discuss them. We know, for example, that Article 8 of the Constitution, of course, ushered in the directives and objectives of state policy, which gives us an opportunity to just to legally enforce some of those provisions as part of the Constitution. That's a very remarkable progress. But also we know that the government, for example, currently, you know, with all these laws and policies, if you don't have programs for growing opportunities for women, and I'm imploring you people to help to... We have our partners, of course, Currently, we are working with GIZ to develop a huge program on women in green business value chain. And this is going to be massive, massive cadre of women entrepreneurs that will champion the green economy. And of course, UNFP Youth Livelihood Program, these are almost $100 million going to women, by the way, specifically for women. And I'm talking about CEDAW. Of course, other legislations come in, but we must, you know, we have to unpack these laws into programs. Programs touch people, touch lives of people, and improve livelihoods. Of course, we have the discussant talked about community versus individual rights. We still have a lot of issues to do with cultural or community appropriations, and this is something which, as lawyers here and people in decision making in terms of law and legislation, need to focus on. A lot of community rights are not being respected, and we focus so much on individualism. And you know, human rights has this, you know, universality versus cultural relativity. Those two concepts are ever clashing. And where there is community rights, especially during compensations in the infrastructure development programs, they don't respect community rights. And some of the communities own properties together. Now, when, I'm not saying government, but when anyone is trying to compensate and find something of a community nature, they appropriate it. They don't reward the community as a whole. The fact that, yes, human rights are interlinked, and as government, we have open arms. We have open arms in terms of partnerships and women. We commend the work of the judiciary, and especially to do with interpretation of some of the constitutional provisions that have opened up the space where we find leverage. We have, of course, policies, so many policies. You mentioned them. Equal opportunities policy, the national gender policy. These help even civil society to program and fundraise and get legitimacy in terms of the space they occupy. And we appreciate.
I'll still take you on later in as far as this $221 million program, how it will target, whom is it targeting, and how do we ensure that the rural woman in Chana Mukaka or Bujiri can access it. Let me now go to Justice David Batema. You are known as a gender-sensitive judge, a trainer, and I also know that Article 21 of the Constitution states that all persons are equal before and under the law in all spheres of political, economic, social, and cultural life, and in every respect, and shall enjoy equal protection of the law. From your experience, can you educate us the reality on the ground? Do women actually enjoy equality before and under the law in all these spheres that I've mentioned about from your own experience? Please educate us, Justice Batem.
Thank you, moderator. From the word go, I would say that's the ideal. It's not the lived reality. The lived reality is what you posed to Mr. Mijoni. We realize that gender gives differently to men and women power, opportunity, privilege, and status. And in our societies, there are three determinants: and religion. Unless we interpret that article you've read with a purposive motive, with a liberal motive, discrimination still exists. The men are regarded as superior and the women are inferior, more so in social, cultural norms. The very reason why we have Article 32 advocating for affirmative action. You have your constitution. You can kindly read Article 32(1). Because the makers of the constitution realized that equality is theoretical. And there are certain small things they had to make constitutional in order for us to realize that women are not equal to men. What is Article 32(1)?
Article 32(1) reads as follows: affirmative action in favor of marginalized groups. Notwithstanding anything in this constitution, the state shall take affirmative action in favor of groups marginalized on the basis of gender, age, disability, or any other reason created by history, tradition, or custom for the purpose of redressing imbalances which exist against them.
Exactly. There is imbalance based on those grounds. And in 32(2), the Constitution makes it clear to us.
32 reads, laws, cultures, and customs and traditions which are against the dignity, welfare, or interest of women or any other marginalized group to which Clause 1 relates or which undermine their status are prohibited by this Constitution.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Constitution, apart from making it a state obligation to provide facilities and opportunities as a constitutional right, goes further to look at those areas where there is discrimination against marginalized groups or individuals, you can say. Laws. How progressive are our laws? You remember we inherited our laws from England, and they are very gender insensitive. Very gender insensitive. We only have recourse to Article 274 in our Constitution to say we can apply judicial courage and judicial activism to interpret the old laws with such modifications, adaptations, and qualifications so that they measure up to a gender-sensitive constitution. Now, what is made constitutional in small way is what I wanted to point out. Apart from opportunities becoming constitutional, we say the state shall provide. Now, what's the state? Why don't we say the judiciary shall provide? The police shall provide. What are the other arms of government? The prison shall provide. The schools shall provide. And then we shall realize gender equality. But 32.2, it says laws, tradition, cultures, which are against what? Dignity. The dignity. Now, what is dignity? The dignity of women. Do we understand it? My father grew up and raised us knowing that a man is superior. The man is the decision maker, master programmer, isn't it? What's the dignity of women? When they stand here and speak with us, I once told my professor Nampe and said, when you stand up before your students and you are lecturing to them, do they see the head, or do they look at other parts and begin imagining other things? Dignity of women. And then welfare. What's the welfare of women? Unless we understand the welfare of women as a right, we shall never promote gender equality. Ask your neighbor whether they know the welfare of women. I asked the other day the human rights defenders, do the men know the price of new oranges? What is the other one? Dignity,
welfare, or interest of women.
Typed. Women are gossips. They gossip a lot. Okay, let them form their Nigina groups and they gossip. If that's their interest, I go to that workshop. I must go to a salon first. That's their interest. How have we promoted it? Now you are saying, go and serve in Karamoja, and the lady is thinking twice. Is there a saloon there? Oh, shall I afford lipstick in Nairobi? They are sending me away from my husband. Maybe my interest is seeing him every day and serving him a meal. That's my interest. My aunt told me, be there every morning to say, good morning, my husband. A woman dresses, she dresses to kill, and none in this room says, oh, you are smart. In society, is she seen as a sex object or a professor of law? Is Mbuwate wrote to me a letter recommending bail and signed chairman. And I said, hello, are you the one who sent so and so to stand? He said, yes. But you signed as chairman and then you stamped as chairperson. The two are conflicting. Said, twaliza muli. Obwa chairperson bukole eri wa muntebe bera mani, chairman. And so, Salam Musumba was contesting for LC5 chairperson. She also put a poster say, chairman, LC5 Kamli. And I said, I'm not going to swear you in. She had to look for the chairperson, electoral commission, to say this is the person who was elected as chairperson, because language creates gender equality. Are you a chairperson or a chairman? Chairman, dictator. Chairperson, leader. Are you a headmaster, a headmistress, or a head teacher? Because a mistress is between a mattress and a master. Shouldn't we condemn you when you defile our daughters as master? Master, master, master. Okay? The language alone will create status for our man. Am I having the right to divorce tomorrow? Said, no. What God has together, no man shall put asunder. I said, you see, when you wedded us, did you become God? Is God black or white, tall or short? I said, why are you asking funny questions? I said, because what God has put together, God can put asunder. I said, I don't understand that. And I said, okay, who is the head of our home since you have wedded us? One beside the other. I said, no, behind every successful man there is a woman. I said, did you wed my wife behind me? I thought we stood side by side, equal before God. I don't understand you. You're speaking in parables. I said, okay, when you eat food and it's useful to your body, you are entering marriage. But what happens when the food becomes incompatible with the body? You reject it, isn't it? You have to go to the toilet and use the other part of the body to reject that food. You don't use the mouth. The church should wed. Leave the divorces to us. We are the other part of the body. Don't think people should come back to the church to say, please, we want a divorce. God was clever to use different parts of the body. Because of that, promoting gender equality in society, in religious society, might be impossible or near impossible. Who is the head of the Catholic Church? A man, not a woman. Who is the head of the Muslim faith? A man, not. Even in prayers, the women, the numpers with all their degrees have to be behind there, not near God. If they are in front, go behind. We are looking at them as not owners of property, users of property. And if we want to maintain the power, the status, the opportunities, mere rhetoric.
Thank you very much, Justice David Batema. You've really done justice to that question, and I thank you for educating the audience. Let me go to my sister, Fatuma Kakoza. You've had the different interventions that
the implementation of these laws. The Deputy Chief Justice rightly stated, rights on paper are no value. There's so much good laws, so many good laws. There's so many good provisions on paper that are providing rights. But what is on the ground? We find that actually even the dialogue, the topic of the dialogue, not the theme, the topic saying access to justice for women. Over the years, women have been empowered, affirmative action, Constitution 1995, Beijing. But these women have been empowered, but not prepared, but no preparation has been made to these men to receive these empowered women. I'd like to generate discussion around this holistic empowerment. Justice Batema attempted, made a statement of the bishop in church that behind every successful man is a woman. But I would like to change that narrative today. The fact is, behind every successful man is a tired woman lately. I am telling you, because women have been empowered and men have not been prepared to receive these empowered women, so women are tired. We are in the boardroom, we are making luombo, we are looking for socks,
taking children to school. And if you attempt to strike the balance, that is the domestic violence we are seeing. Huh? So many men will say, a woman who goes to feeder, that is a gold case. But yeah, those women, women of the kind who will go to feeder are trying to realize their rights. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like us to put our minds to that. How has the state, the human rights defendant, how have we prepared the men to live in coexistence with the empowered woman peacefully? Because His Excellency, the German ambassador, did state, it will not be verbatim, but he did state and said that where there is collective participation, we can have peace and proper negotiations. But in the going situation, what we see is so much empowerment of the girl child. And what I'm saying is a fact. You go to schools, the boys have no self-esteem. When they see girls being too good, I'll call it, they become violent. You find a P1 child bullying a girl because she's doing so much he can't do. So we also need to prepare the boys in that perspective. Then secondly, I'd also like to address our minds to, again, holistic implementation. We are saying there is freedom of expression, freedom of opinion, but now I'll go to the marginalized, privileged. Those two words don't usually coexist, but this is what I mean. I am a lawyer. I have been through law school. I've been through LDC, and that is the basic of an advocate to what? To exist in the practice. But because I am veiled, because I'm a woman, when I join a law firm, they'll throw me in some department there where I never see proper clients. Domestic relations, because you know those are usually closed circuit discussions. They'll put you in things like immigration. You never come to the real table to discuss commercial, serious commercial contracts. I don't know, everybody here will agree with me. How many times have you seen women on those tables discussing those oil contracts? They'll bring them in for affirmative action. The person giving the money will think there is no woman. So, Fatuma, come with your veil. We want what? We want diversity. So they should be deliberate. I mean, like Justice Batemar stated, the Constitution is good, but it is not deliberate. It should say, ministries should do, the judiciary should do, but the state should provide. Is so ambiguous. It is not being specific and deliberate on the need. Then when it comes to freedom, I will comment on the detentions, these haphazard detentions and arrests of certain sections of minorities. The Minister of Internal Affairs sometime in August stated that so many Muslim clerics have been arrested, but they fail to be arraigned in court by my friends on a certain table. But they've not been arraigned in court. So that kind of confidence to victimize a certain section of minorities, it does not profess holistic implementation of the rights across board. Then I'd also like to bring to put our mind to the fact that much as there has been progress in terms of the patrilineal deficiencies in terms of human rights and laws, the Land Act 1998, it brought forth the opportunity for women, for wives to discuss in situations where a home is going to be disposed. Succession laws have been good. Court cases have been decided, but like the director of Avocat Sans Frontières stated, please go ahead now and amend the law. If it is going to be repealed, let it be repealed. Because this business of exciting us with good news and then nothing is actually happening, because those laws are now coming to 10 years since those decisions were made about adultery in the Penal Code and the Marriage and Divorce. It is only the Succession Act that has seen life. So please, the state actors here, because we depend on you. Civil society will always make noise, but without the state, nothing is going to happen. We want to see progress, but we appreciate what is happening. Then there is that domestic relations bill. That Article 21 is, if the domestic relations bill is promulgated, I want to believe it is a cocktail of Article 21. It's looking at the interests, it's looking at the welfare, it's looking at the balance. And I am very optimistic it will also give us direction on how to prepare these men to receive the empowered woman. Then when I look at the CEDAW, I'd also like to appreciate the state progress in implementation of the CEDAW. We've had promulgation of laws like the Domestic Relations Bill, the Domestic Violence Act, which is very central to women. But Mr. Moderator, please let it be known, some men are facing violence. Because of the over-empowered woman, she cannot take before it was the woman being victimized because she did not know what not to experience. But now that she knows what to experience, also men are facing violence. So it is a double challenge. So the Domestic Violence Act does not have to be looked at as a single gender. Let's balance. Let it be equality, which we shall discuss to confirm whether it can actually be real. But if it is equality, let it be balanced, let it be holistic, in order for us to achieve the proper expectation of our good laws. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Kakoza, for that insightful measure. I want to go back to Justice David Batema. As years ago, about 25 or so, you were accused of writing male judgments. In this room here, we have managers, we have senior policy makers, we have partners of big law firms. Paul is here. What does it mean to make a male judgment or to make a male decision where women are involved? Writing a male judgment. I want to believe that I last wrote a male judgment in 1998. You see, it is true. I dismissed a case of a woman who came late to court at 8:30. And I ended the line with, in the interest of justice. The case is dismissed for want of prosecution with costs. In the interest of justice. And then Flavia Mnava, who was then the inspector of courts, asked me, do you know the interest of women? What is justice to a woman who wakes up very early to prepare to come to court? What are the various things they first do? The unpaid work. And she asked me directly, does your wife work? And I said, no, my wife doesn't work. I'm the one who works. So she's at home, not working. In fact, I said, doing nothing. She's at home, doing nothing. So I said, did she wake you up?
I said, yes. Then she's your timekeeper. She's a clock. Did she prepare breakfast? And I said, she also prepares lunch and supper. They said, that is your chef. How much would you pay for a chef at your hotel? Before you come to court, does she tether the goats and the cows to make sure they have something to eat as she proceeds to court? I said, yes, that's the farm manager. You pay her for that? Did she welcome any visitors, and does she care about the public relations at home? I said, yes. Said, that's a receptionist. She does that work before she comes to court. But for a man, he will wake up, put on trousers and shirts, go to the dining table and say, where is my breakfast? Eat very fast, go to the car and begin hooting. You're making me late. Where? She opens the gate. She's the gatekeeper. See? They said, unless we mind the unremunerated work of women before they come to court, we shall always dismiss their cases. We write male judgments. When we say they are equal before the law, we haven't taken into consideration what Parliament has seen as things which do not enable them to remain equal with us. They said, obuntu obwo obutonotono. Muna kola obuntu obwo obutonotono, which can bring out the reality in the lives of the women. If you adjourned the case maybe to 5 p.m. ending 6 or 7, will she be able to run home and make supper for the husband? Because you cannot have her early and you can't have her late, what affirmative action are you going to take in favor of this woman so that she realizes access to justice? Maybe you adjust the time for the women. And when they come to court and they have babies, do you have a breastfeeding room for mothers who come to court, so that you are able to break and say, oh, the baby needs the bottle, and she goes to the breastfeeding room to breastfeed and then comes back to dock? Say, no. You just tell her, give. Is it give or give? Give the child the breast as you testify in court. But I have since learned that a breast is a private part. Yes or no? I saw the police arresting Ingrid Turinawe by the breast, pulling her breast. Were they arresting Ingrid Turinawe or her private part? So, the facilities, give them the opportunity and the facilities. How many courts have breastfeeding rooms? It took time to convince Mama Kadaga. And I said, you are my classmate, my desk mate at the University of Zimbabwe. How can we have no breastfeeding room at Parliament? And the men were saying, those women who are still interested in childbearing should not come to Parliament. And I said, excuse me, where is it in the Constitution that breastfeeding mothers should not be voted to come to Parliament? Universities like UCU tell you you cannot be a lecturer there unless you have wedded. Holy matrimony. They will dismiss the student for getting pregnant, forgetting that the Constitution has provided that every person of the age of 18 and above is entitled to found a family, isn't it? How will you found a family without eating the raw beans? And if they germinate, is it a problem? The state shall provide facilities and opportunities to enable women realize their full potential. The university should provide those facilities for babysitting, because they have admitted students who have been constitutionally allowed to eat the beans and they germinate. Am I clear? But they will dismiss you and say, come back with a certificate show that you didn't commit abortion and you delivered the child. So what the students do is get a boda at the stage, they put on a ring, they go to NASA Road, forge a marriage certificate, and continue with their studies in UCU. At worst, if they want to continue with their studies, they have to allow the man to meander around. So one woman keeps the ring, the other one keeps the man. These are realities. So when we are writing our judgments as to who should benefit, for example, from the family or an estate, we ask ourselves, will the people around her allow her to exercise her rights? If, for example, there's a protection order to say the violent man should leave the home, that's the Domestic Violence Act. What will the mother-in-law say? What will the brothers say? Will this woman and the children live peacefully in a home built on clan land? The mother-in-law will be the first to tell this woman, your brothers here come and eat chicken every day. Now you are arresting your husband for eating maybe a chicken from a poultry project because it is alone, blah, 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 blah. It won't make sense. What we are doing now in the judiciary is to engender our rulings, to engender our judgments. Because not everybody is studying gender and the law as a mandatory course. They come raw into the judiciary. Simply by appointing them magistrates or registrars or judges doesn't make them gender sensitive. They need to go through Vatima's class, Nampeo's class, to understand the lived reality as opposed to the letter of the law, so that they write gendered judgments, gendered rulings. And UNFPA mentioned the milestone. Maybe I should show you this kindly. We launched the you are a better reader.
Thank you. The National Sexual and Gender-Based Violence Bench Book for Uganda, first edition 2022.
Yes, it has taken us time to research and say, how can we identify SGBV? How can we differentiate GBV from SGBV without trivializing sexual offenses? What are these ingredients that we should teach the police to investigate and bring to court, for example, in trafficking of persons? So that when we are in court, we speak the same language with the investigator, with the state attorney, with the witnesses. What are the facilities that should be provided for vulnerable witnesses? What's the witness protection we need for those coming to testify? Will your neighbor allow this lady to travel to court for 5 adjournments? Nyabo, I'm going to give evidence. What happened yesterday? Batama was not there. He had gone for a conference at Sheraton. So they said the case is adjourned tomorrow. Will she come back? The husband will ask her, why are you picking interest into that case? Is the neighbor your boyfriend? Okay, you choose between me and going to court. Justice delayed is justice what? All the prisoners in the prisons, wherever you go, they will tell you, justice delayed is justice denied. So we are grateful that we have these special sessions. But perhaps we should upgrade to special courts on SGBV. When I was posted to start a court, high court in Iganga, I was given the impression that I'll be facilitated. Maybe premises will be in a place. I'm in a small cocoon of a small room of a chief magistrate. Actually, the people who come there address me as chief. Chief. But when I saw like the funding was not forthcoming, 31 million for a whole year, I decided to go and make camp in Kirinya prison. Asked for a tent, went to Kirinya, and preached the ingredients of several offenses for 3 days. On the fourth day, I said, now I want pleas of guilt and plea bargain only. And you can imagine the line. In 3 days, I had done 150 cases. So,
innovation.
People there began to realize that justice can be taken to the people, not nearer to the people. I told the prisoners in Kirinya, both female wing and male wing, that there are various ways of interpreting provocation. Leave alone what Nampeo taught us, that you act in the heat of passion, you lose your temper. He said, no, a woman does not need to lose temper. As accumulates over time. You eat her chicken, a dose of anger. You cheat on her, a dose of anger. You hit her, a dose of anger. You abuse her. Look at this in Rwanda. Did you have glasses in your home? You're breaking my glasses. You have delayed. You have given me food which is tasteless. Anger accumulates. And just a small trivial mistake, and there will be a homicide in that home. Do we treat that as murder? Is that murder? Maybe it is accumulated anger. Can't we develop that as a defense other than provocation? Provocation doesn't mean anything in domestic relations where there is gender inequality. So to me, I would throw away provocation. And I go in for the defense of accumulated anger. So that when a lady kills or hits, I say, she's saying enough is enough. We are talking about people with disability. What does our law provide? That a court of law cannot sentence a person once declared a lunatic or an idiot. And I say, who has the power to send this file to the Minister of Constitutional Affairs and Justice? Do they have time for judicial matters? So the prisons will tell you a pile of files pending minister's order. I made one. I said, that law is archaic. It is null and void. Under the new constitution, affirmative action should be taken for people with disabilities. Eric Bushoborozi versus Uganda. It should be the judicial officer who is entrusted with judicial power to look at the gender inequalities or affirmative action for people with disability and say, take this one to Butabika for treatment. This one is okay, should be released. This one is okay, can stand trial, not the Minister of Justice. So there are so many ungendered judgments and rulings which do not take into consideration people who are disadvantaged by age, sex, history. You know, for example, the word namwandu or nacheyombekedde, once it appears in my court, I know those are derogatory terms. Namwandu, that you lost a husband, but the husband buried in front of the home is still the owner of the home. You are namwandu, you belong to somebody's property. Even on the invitation cards for wedding, you have to add there, the family of the late Batema invites you to the wedding. Now the ghost is ruling from the grave. You see? Oh my God. Now, nacheyombekede, these are historical things between the Baganda and the Banyoro. Okuombeka is to build, right? Now, a lady should not build a kitchen for herself in Buganda or Busoga. kati weeyombekeranga omunyolo. Oli mukazi olina okuwasibwa. Marriage is the epitome of success. So when you are unable to get a husband, or you don't want to be mistreated, you build your own home, and maybe you are successful in society, and the men want to still say, however big the rat becomes, it is food for the cat. You a woman, you must get married. Or I am a man without a job, but I'm still above you, kakoza. You see? So these are things we teach. We must teach our judicial officers to understand how the societal attitude is, and then attack it in binding judgments, binding orders. So many things to talk about. Thank you. Now this one is better. Thank you very much, Justice David Batema, for those insights. At this juncture, I'd also like to recognize and welcome the defense spokesperson, Brigadier Felix Kulaije. Thank you for coming. Let me go to Bernard, Commissioner Bernard. Back to your interesting government programs and interventions aimed at uplifting the status of women. How do you ensure that these grants you're talking about, or projects worth $221 million, are accessible to these rural women, as opposed to the boardroom ladies who are seated here, who don't actually want to apply for it? How do we ensure? And we have had cases of government programs, instead of uplifting the status of women, instead they undermine. For example, don't ask me for the data or the statistics, but we've heard of the parish development model as one that is increasing cases of domestic violence. That once women access this money, you display their names and how much they have received on the district registrar's notice board. Once they reach home, they are asked to surrender the same amount of money to their husbands. Failure to do so, get out, or the rest, as you know, is clear to you. So my question is, how do you ensure that rural women still get this money and can also can access justice? Because today they say justice is for the rich. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob, for the very interesting questions. I can see a lot of players here regarding access to empowerment programs. In Comrade Ottawa here with the Stanbic high innovator programs, which are doing a lot of good work. But also I've seen women who have accessed these funds and have claimed their space at domestic or household level. Now, you know, the country loses around 3% of our GDP because of discrimination. And every time you see discrimination, you know someone is taking the benefit of that. Discrimination is like those who have done accounts, the rules, or the accounting rules. Wherever there is a credit, there is a debit. Every time you encounter discrimination, someone has taken that as a benefit. And that's how glaring it can be. It impacts on our GDP, denies women the opportunity to be more productive, to contribute to the economy, or even to be valued or to be paid for what they do. I already shared statistics about unpaid care work at domestic level. I'm glad that my Lord has amplified the debate in a way that has brought it clearly at the pulpit here. Bob, you also called me a state actor. I'm not an actor. You know, acting is very theatrical. And you know, in the theater, what happens? I can see better actors than me here. But I can see we have guidelines for accessing these empowerment funds. And we have been in it for a long, long time. Now, according to the PDM which you mentioned, we worked so much for the affirmative action. Actually, 60% goes to youth, 30%, I think 50% goes to youth. Then women and the people with the disabilities and the elderly take the rest of the share in equal measure. So 90% of PDM is affirmative action. Only 10% is meant for men. Okay? I've forgotten the actual statistics in terms of share, but this is how it is. It's meant for the vulnerable, and in line with Article 32. That notwithstanding, we've built capacities of different local governments to make sure they follow these guidelines. Of course, there is a lot of stampeding. When it comes to absorption at lower local government, there are some few things which were taken for granted at the time of programming. Like 100 million per parish. I mean, not all parishes. Some people have ranches which cover almost the whole parish. And you'll find 3 people who are, ranchers. So how would you give them 100 million? They will even chase you. You won't even access their gates to distribute the money, if at all they need it. We've had, that is generalizing poverty, actually, and vulnerability, which is a big, big, big problem in policy targeting. But we've learned through the hard way this, the GROW grant, the $217 million, has clear guidelines. As I speak now, we are countrywide moving towards raising the participation of women, especially women leaders, make sure they raise the groups to access these funds. And the guidelines are very clear. It is up-country women, the bottom-up kind of access fund. And that there's no, shortcut about that. We have, of course, some grants which are going like $50 million, I think, or which is going to PSFU, Private Sector Foundation, to build some facilities for women. And we're also building a one-stop, innovation hub for women to keep mentorship, apprenticeship, and, coaching for women entrepreneurs. Actually, this money is going for women entrepreneurs, not just because, of course, you are a woman, but you must have a kind of registered enterprise to test it. And it gives better money than PDM. PDM, the average is 1 million, okay? But this one, it gives up to 200 million for women entrepreneurs. So those in nut butter, those in processing, agro-processing, they will get equipment and tools to add value. But that notwithstanding, we've structured it through best practices. It will have equity financing. Like women who are already taken collateral and they have loans, maybe you have a loan of 200 million, will be able to pay like 30% of that, to the bank, so that you get some reprieve and relief. You see, this is, breaking the barriers to accessing capital and liquidity. So it is quite a very interesting program. Thank you so much.
We are sharing microphones because we have a challenge, a technical challenge. Maybe our technical team can help us on this before we go into the plenary. Just as I'm about to open the discussion to the plenary, I would like to ask Madam Fatuma. Earlier on, you provided us with scenarios of how the empowered women are now facing challenges as a result of empowerment. But you also posed the question that men or society has not been prepared on how to handle the empowered women. Could you kindly share with us what you consider as practical solution? How should men who are seated here in front of you handle empowered women like you?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. But now you're making me release some trade secrets that are supposed to be. Okay, from an advocate's, a woman lawyer's perspective, number one, how do you prepare? Okay, this is not, I don't want it to be subjective, because you see I'm a lawyer and I'm married, so I do not want this to be implied on me or my husband. But otherwise, from a perspective of a woman lawyer, I'll talk about my experience when I was working with FIDA. Now I'm going to be subjective. Anyway, so my husband met me when I was a board member for the Women Lawyers Association. So while he was organizing the wedding, whomever he told, where is the bride working? Feeder, he said, woo, you're taking a risk even, you're taking the risk well knowing what will happen. I actually want to applaud him. I think he's the most confident Muslim man in the country. Because at that time, when I got married, I stopped being employed and I opened a human rights organization. And our clients, our first constituency was sex workers. So I'm going to give you this story. Then from that perspective, you'll know how to receive the empowered woman. So, so we opened the office in the area of Muyenga. I think it is stereotyped or synonymous with the type of constituency we were looking at. So I sit down with my colleagues. I had some partners with whom we opened the human rights organization, and we were looking at not empowering these women to remain sex workers. Our rhetoric was withdraw. But you know, when you approach these ladies, they will tell you they don't want rescue. They want empowerment. But our approach was empowerment and withdraw. So I sit with this gentleman at my housemate. I tell him about the plan. In the course of implementation, he tells me, but you know something, Fatuma? You have to actually go to Capital Pub, get chewing gum on a high stool. Is this a loving African man? Or he's just pushing me to the den? I thought about it. So I go back, I tell him, but you know what, honey, I can't just go and sit in a bar when I'm a hajat. How? He said, but you know, when you want to make things happen, this is the real world. The 1995 Constitution has human rights. They've removed the power to make me seem incompetent. Anyway, that aside, that's a sick joke. So he tells me, if you want things to happen, it is 1995 Constitution talking about rights. By the way, this is a businessman. He's not even a professional. I am Fatuma Kakoza Bagalaliwo, so my husband is Bagalaliwo something. For security purposes, I'll not say the other name. I'm a Muslim woman. There may be another. The 5 Constitution is talking about rights. And now you have gone to the space to work. Do what you need to do, make things happen. Those ladies are not going to trust you if they've never seen you in their space. So to cut the long story short, what am I communicating? This empowered woman needs to be supported. I want to tell you, this man is very religious. He says, when you make your money, because our Quran says that a woman has to be taken care of. You don't get your salary and give your husband, like I hear some men do, as part of the violence. Just like the moderator commented, when you get the money from the ministry, then you're giving the man. So how do you support this woman? Do not forsake your role as a man. Sit as a family and agree that this is what you will be able to complement on the family finances, and this is what I will keep doing. But you know what is happening now? The men are leaving the women to get tired. If you walked into the feeder reception for only 20 minutes, if you're an honest man, you'd be surprised. But if you're not honest, you'd think it's life as usual. Women are tired. Women are breaking. When a woman gets empowered, the man, even these market women, the man will just neglect to support in any way. I don't know whether it's jealousy of empowerment. I don't know. I don't know whether it is lack
Perhaps
of self-esteem.
lack of appreciation of
The pull her down syndrome. You have gone to that meeting. I saw those army men. Those security men are going to take you. You were fraternizing with them. You know what I mean? Eh? Try and raise the self-esteem of your wife. You see, if it is a businessman, he's going to fear the general. We are always seeing the general on television making statements. You see, these people are arrested. Don't joke. In Somalia, this is happening because now that's power. Women love power. But if you do not encourage your wife along the path of empowerment, they will get, that is what I call the marginalized privilege. You have that space, but you fear to do things because you think you're going to lose out on one part. A thuggish husband who doesn't care, he's always doing his own things. He doesn't care about the family. But if the husband is available, you find that the women at the top are usually losing out on their marriages because they're trying to get the career clean, but the home is breaking. That balance is what I'm looking at. Sure. Let the men be prepared to receive the empowered woman. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fatuma.
And maybe just to add one thing.
Go ahead, please.
I'd also like to address our minds to implementation of human rights in this advent of global trends. We have a lot of information technology tenants, social media, and that has women and men, and it causes violence. So in this advent of global trends, we also need to address our minds to that. But otherwise, I am saying the balance is lacking.
Tilted.
Yeah, tilted.
Thank you very much, Fatuma. I guess we'll get some feedback from the audience, especially our fellow men who are seated here. Uganda, as a country, has ratified so many international human rights instruments. Our constitution also speaks to that. That I want you to help us understand or unpack the definition in CEDAW. And if, with your permission, if you allow me to read it for you, it defines discrimination as, for the purposes of the present convention, the term discrimination against women shall mean any distinction, exclusion, or restriction made on the basis of sex, which has the effect or purpose of impairing or nullifying the recognition, enjoyment, or exercise by women, irrespective of their marital status, on a basis of any other field. This is so broad. This definition is so broad. Help us. What do you mean by effect or purpose of impairing? How do you impair a woman or nullify her recognition?
Thank you, moderator. I wish we had begun with that definition. We would be perhaps talking the same language. When I'm lecturing at Makerere in the School of Women and Gender Studies, I always want to begin with the gender terms and definitions. Now, for purposes of CEDAW, the term, the end of that definition, it should be us questioning and problematizing the existing law to find out whether it enables the women to enjoy human rights on an equal basis with the men, irrespective of their marriage status. So the question is, have you any problems with the existing law? Whether customary law or written law, whether Catholic law or Muslim law. Question it. You are being empowered to say, don't take it for granted that men and women are equal before the law. But question whether that law has a right to education. Except pregnant girls? No. Everybody has a right to education. So when I was in Mukono, after COVID, the Diocese of Mukono passed a law and said, pregnant girls shall not be allowed back into school. but the boys would be. And I said, the effect or purpose is to deny girls the right to education. Then we shall have very few women participating in top positions because they will not have degrees. They will not have the diplomas, simply because the brains, the knowledge. Okay, I always ask this silly question. How many times does a pregnant girl get pregnant? In 9 months. More girls will a boy impregnate in 9 months. Uncountable. So who has bad manners? Who should be expelled from school?
The boy.
When we say bonna basome, yes, bonna basome. Abalenzi n'abawala. The impregnated and the pregnant prevent the pregnancy. It's only Makerere University which has that facility to prevent pregnancy at the university hospital. Other universities, shauri yako. The law on markets, I don't know what the act is called. If you have got a baby of less than 2 years, that baby is by law not allowed in the market. So will you get a stall in Wandagaya market when you're a mother? But nowadays, I think they break the law as we look on. How many babies do we see in the markets? Yes, we have to question the existing law and change the status quo. Let us not be satisfied with it. Like I was questioning that. What God has put together, no man should put asunder. Let's question that. Is that the interpretation of the Bible? The Bible leaves the powers to God, not to the bishop or the imam. Nobody is wedded behind the other, and then you say, stop at the weddings saying, you have got a man to look after you. Who is looking after the other? When I wake up, I ask for the socks, I ask for the underwear, I ask for the belt, I ask for breakfast. Who is looking after who? Okay, let's question the status quo. This is presented. And what do the boys do? Come back to sell the graves. And now to the African community, a grave is not a grave of a dead person. Say, oyo ye batema, oyo ye kakunguru, oyo ye kakoza. Now, to take away that land, even if you are going to build an Entebbe Express highway, you have to give in to the whole clan. You can talk about the north, if it is a marriage system, so that the clan sees your whole body. To allow to see whether you are fit for marriage. If it is in Ankole, Zimbabwe, or that cattle corridor, hey, the father is the first one to test where the cows have gone. So what if he's a sharpshooter? Is that a grandchild or a son or a daughter? Now, I had such a case in Zimbabwe where the brothers were fighting the granddaughter to say she got 40 acres of land, just like us, the boys. And it was a case in Masaka which had gone on for over 20 years until I sat them down and I said, who first visited your virginity? Tell us, madam. Said the grandfather. Are you sure this is the son of this one? So said, Babus. And that one ended the whole matter. He said, this is not a granddaughter. This is a daughter of your father. So if the Constitution says women shall be accorded full and equal dignity of the person with the men, is entitled to an equal share with you. He was telling us Lilian married in Mbale, she got pregnant before marriage. Yafunira amabunda kuluya ewange. Then I said, but uncle, even me, I brought a child from Kasese. Why didn't you find me? I said, you a sharp boy. This is a useless girl. So we go into Kwanjula and the father says, I'll not sit into that chair unless they first pay me a fine. I said, Mommy, sit in the chair. Mommy, sit in the chair. Women shall be accorded full and equal dignity of the person with men at Kwanjula. And so we said, yongeza sound. This fridge is for mommy. These cows are for mommy. This Gomez is for mommy. And the daddy had sat across the road. Said, yongeza sound chimukubire matu. I said the suit should be given to the younger boy and the council. Said, and our uncle was there. Anybody with a reason why this shoe should not be wedded into holy matrimony? What? They have never paid me the fine. But I brought police and surrounded the ceremony. Now I've come. Don't wed them. And I saw my sister going down. Then I rose from behind. Said, yes, Bishop, I also have a reason. And the whole church was alight with, said, let's go to the vestry. Church, what do you need for wedding? You must be baptized, must have been confirmed in the church. You pay the church fees. You must be an adult above 18. What else? Be with you. I said, chiche chibulako. Auntie Tata teyabago blessing, teyabago muksa. I said, but you are going to bless us. We need his blessings. Better than you, the bishops and the archdeacons. I said, okay, what does the Constitution provide? And I had carried one. Said, tewali chibanja. Then I pulled out a band of, you disrespected yourself, we must disrespect you. Askari, kuja toa chafi. And I took him by the trousers out. And the wedding continued. It's only after 5 years that he came back and said, you were right. And before that, I had already imprisoned him because he knocked down the house, which was at window level. Said, "Mlikuzimbira mama wa imwenumba mwa Kirinya." Constitution is void to the extent of the inconsistency. So if it is a mango and one side is rotten, cut it off, don't eat it. But let's eat the good customs, let's eat the good religion, let's eat the good practices, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Justin. Ladies and gentlemen, I think how many minutes
10.
do we have? 10 minutes. Good. So, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to raise any issue you want to raise or any concerns, questions, clarifications to the panelists. But first of all, a round of applause to all our panelists for the job well done. Thank you. Yes, I have a senior prisons officer here.
Yes, thank you very much. List, starting with the Deputy Chief Justice in his absence. Now the time has already disarmed me because the 10 minutes were very many. So I don't know where I should comment, but with all the panelists and what Justice has really discussed is really what we as prisons we feel. But for this house, I'm Assistant Commissioner General of Prisons, T.O. Milton, in charge of correctional services. In short, I'm OC prisoners the whole country. As per yesterday, I locked up 77,089 prisoners. 519 just 167 petty offenders and 19,617. These are convicts. Remands, I have 36,786. Capital offenders 17,412. The petty offenders are 19,374. These were holders in reducing the number of remands. For me, I basically need convicts. I know why. Actually, if I only had convicts, I would have a lot of space. Conject offenders. I'm wondering, why am I having, as Uganda Prison Service, we are trying our level best. Probably, where we infringe on prisoners' human rights come from one factor, that is congestion. Because the capacity I have is only for 20,000 prisoners, but I'm having over 77,000. So how are you going to say that I'm responsible for poor feeding, for poor accommodation, for poor clothing, for count everything that you want, only one factor? Why am I raising this? Because basically all the responsible people are here. If we don't, how many years will somebody stay on remand? Others have said 5 years, 7 years, and all that. Can it be revisited? Judgment debtors, 519. 500 prisoners there. I would have reduced upper prison by 500. Somebody has failed to pay somebody. Now you take him to prison. He's not working. How will he get this money? But somewhere, I think we had a workshop with human rights. They said there was a judgment somewhere. I don't know why it's not being activated. I don't need judgment debtors. Okay, I get some small facilitation to keep them for 6 months. That money you give me for 6 months actually cannot even take care of them for 3 weeks. 9 months. These children with their mothers. There's nobody. First of all, they hate me in the village where I come from. I have no parents, I have no husband, I have no what. I can't surrender my child to another person. Can we, in the interest of time, since others also want to comment, let me stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I understand.
I still need my job.
I'll avoid quoting you.
To the organizers, I just want to bring apology for Commissioner General of Prisons, who would have been here, but has other things. So he said I should come. Sure. I came with the Commissioner, Custodial Services, Kivumbi, he's there. Then Commissioner Legal Services, actually Stock Human Rights, Aliona Tukunda. I have Assistant Commissioner Gabu Rebecca, in charge of Human Rights, Uganda Prison Service.
Thank you very much. They are all welcome. I saw a hand somewhere here. Please. It's the accounting officer.
Thank you, moderator. I want to add my voice to first recognize all the protocol. Thank the organizers and the funders of this dialogue. I think this is important. In fact, now that we are discussing some of these things, very important. In the past, it was not easy to discuss some of these issues. There has been several raised here. I think first and most important, we need to understand so many concepts are out there. We understand domestic violence. What are the components? Are they even aware that some of these to take information out so that people are able to understand? And I think it's also good to acknowledge that yes, we are moving, but there is still a lot to be done. If you look in this room, I don't know how many women rights defenders are women. We still have a lot to do. Benefited from affirmative action. Do we know affirmative action? Many of them who have benefited, they don't even want to leave. They even want to suffocate the younger girls who are trying to come up. These are women who should shift. There's still a lot we need to do. And maybe also, I think it's time. How do we know the journey we have moved? I think we need to create some database so that we know how many women have benefited, how many women have been violated in terms of statistics, by categories. When we are talking, people may not appreciate. When you talk about domestic violence, how many women are affected? How many men are affected? And forward. I know in terms of law, Equal Opportunities Commission is now doing, before a law is enacted, they look at it and say, who is looking at those laws which are enforced to know, like it just was saying, are they sensitive to the issues we are discussing? I think there is a lot of work. We need to look at that. So don't we need to review all these laws and even
that I step in for my boss, Honorable Nandala Mafabe, who is out of the country in Washington on party duties. Curtails freedom of speech and freedom of association. The law has confined us, the political parties, almost to our headquarters. They will tear gas you. They will dump you there behind the cells. this law must be reviewed. We are an alternative. We provide alternative policies. We check government. We need each other. And then secondly, and also wake up to the realization that we're in the 21st century, where technology has moved, where the women have moved. The boy child, but the girl child wakes up at 6. Even when they go to school, they have all these matrons, they have these senior women. The boy child is left free. They only came to read for society. All effort is on the girl child. We've forgotten the boy. And this boy is still the head of the family. This boy is still to be a manager. So we have to break the cultural barriers and also wake up to that. And what we also forget is that this boy child many times is brought up by a single man. So we need to look at that section, break the cultural barriers, and then we can strike a balance. Thank you.
Let's have the next lady. Colleagues, can I request that we be brief so that you can exercise your right to food?
Protocol observed. Hawan Birawa Nabulime. I'm from Justice Centers. I'm a legal officer. I am honored to meet you, Your Lordship, Vatema. This is actually particularly going to Uganda Human Rights. I don't know if we have anyone from Ministry of Gender. We have, oftentimes, we have work provisions for equality and equity, because oftentimes when we look at equality, there are things, that is why Article 33 will come in to appreciate the nature of the women and all that. There are things, in as much as we're saying equality, there are things where women and men are point in time. I'm also a gender student, by the way, but I appreciate the fact that certain things that will not. We have also noticed that some of the problems, like FIDA, that we feel are men of honor and not taking up responsibility. My father has put we girls at really forefront, even much more than the boys. Keeps telling us, even when he's marrying us off, if it gets hot in there, you cannot. So many times, the boy child is not addressed on these ceremonies. Lordship, people from ministry. But while you tell us there are these programs, we send these women there, and you're frustrating them. They go to sub-county, you want them to be in groups, not be within corners. These are programs for the benefit, because we realize that women have also not accorded themselves enough respect. Some are graduates and they're getting in touch with border men and they come for child support. Do you expect him to be able to support you? In as much as we want to be supported, but we should understand the level at which we should be able to. I have a whole list of what I require in a man. And less of that, I would rather remain single. Because rather than getting to court, this day he's not providing for judiciary to be able to provide for the psychosocial department, have those experts. There are so many tiring experiences. I did social work before I did law, and I did a master's in gender from Makere. And you know, there are so many issues that you will notice that are psychosocial, that don't require people to go to psychosocial. But if government comes in, because we have funding from JELOS, because we are the department of the judiciary that does pro bono, by the way, we as justice, for them to be able to work this. Women should on instruments. The law is clear. The law is there. There are no loopholes in the law, but people take some of these matters to be personal, because Senga said, what is tebitotora when someone is going to be taken back in a coffin back to their father's home? Because but women should be wise to understand, in as much as I love this man, because some of them will tell you in a pretense of love. There is no love, there is no submission. Submission is earned. Today I was coming, and then, you know, it was a very interesting topic, and people said the word submission, and someone cut it to sub and then mission. It is a mission that should actually be able to be accorded. The Christians will, when you're reading the Bible, they will tell you that, you know, you should love your wife as Christ loved the church. It was indiscriminative. We as Muslims, the Quran upholds the rights of women. But when we actually go in those mosques, while they're giving us away, the Imam will assert that is not righteous. That is where you should know your position as a woman. It is one thing that we failed, where all these problems come in. You know, someone comes and they're pregnant, they're telling you this man started violating me before I even got pregnant. So I really, really want Ministry of Gender, you should actually be able to look through those projects, because we feel if these women are economically empowered, we will actually be able to reduce them. Because we're doing a lot of nothing. We do mediations, go to court, it is a back and forth.
Thank you very much. Ready there? Oh, General Felix, let me give that later, but then I come to General Felix.
Okay. Protocol observed. I'm Jennifer Baitwamasa. I come from Hoima. We are here talking about from access to equality, empowering women to access justice. We all agree that there's a lot of effort that has been undertaken to ensure that women are empowered, but also popularizing the referral. The victims of GBV know persons the cases are being reported to. Do they care? Do they mind? Do they have a feel of a woman? We find that it is like an open the clan. The time you get back, but also these persons whom you're reporting to, they are pinpointing at you. Even looking at the texture, how you're looking like. From the feet to going to court, we have seen case photos to the victim that maybe as I'm giving you bail. So as we popularize and empower women, how does police quickly swing into action to help these victims?
With Brigadier Felix Plaije, and I think time is not our best ally right now. Can we go to Felix Plaije and then?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I recognize my OB, Justice Vatema. I think she has told they have been encouraged to remain babies by their mothers. They forget they are raising somebody's husband. To the extent, even when he gets married, anything to take a decision at home, let me find out what mommy is saying. For goodness sake, you are supposed to be the head of this family. Your mother has built hers. She has given you the empowerment you need in terms of health. Be man enough. Number one. Number two. Today, young men are turning up. Then we are contributing to the marriage. Babies rather with beards. And they are getting married. Two, please mothers. As in tears, she wishes to follow her husband. Because when he was grooming these children, she said no. Now the man is dead. They have sold everything. And she can't say no. An educationist said, if you don't want your child to cry, be prepared to cry for the rest of your life. Two, if you keep defending your child when he makes mistakes, prepare to hire a lawyer to defend him throughout his life. So, one, empowerment of the boy child means that we go back to the basics. What is the responsibility of a man? Because for me, I was taught a man must look after his family. And so if my wife brings the contribution on the table, I praise God. If she doesn't, that's her money. It's not mine. That is the bottom line. You must provide. Number two.
If you could conclude.
Yes, I want to conclude on this because you think the gender violence you're talking about is across society. This may be true in the rural areas and a few cases in urban areas. The homes have become unbearable thanks to the empowered woman. Not because she's exercising her rights, but she has taken over. Please be reminded, Genesis says you are a suitable helper, not the main. So you're talking about properties. They expropriate. These ones you see here. So let us not house. my this. Excuse me, but you phoned me in this house about PDM. We left the most important first step, mindset change. Financial inclusion minus changing people's minds. That's where you're getting this violence. Because men and women in the villages ought to understand this money is for both of them who have enterprise. Of Nabagagawale, of I don't know, Ntandikwa. This one had come with a difference. Change our minds first. We shall respect these women that are enterprising. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. This is good feedback for government. I hope they are getting it. I'll only entertain one, then I'll give it to the panelists here to give their input, and then we call it a day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Namaka Joderick Frederick is my name, legal officer. One thing we are forgetting is that we need to, at times, feel sorry for the government now, the so-called state. For it is the state that came up with wordings called action. Who are saying that we have over-empowered women or more empowering women. The question we ask ourselves is, how far have we gone with that? Have we achieved what we need from affirmative? And empowered men. 4, is it also time that we give affirmative action to men so that they catch up with already empowered women? So I believe all this goes back to the kind of legislature we are having. That as well as we are feeling sorry or we want to empower ladies with our black and white law we have, but also we need to be well conversant that too much of something is always bad. And if you don't embrace already the first lady, we are deemed to be doomed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think you're also calling for a study. Now let's go to our panelists to see if they can give us any feedback. Commissioner Bernard, do you want to?
Thank you so much. I must say that most of the conversation was about, contributing to the debate, not terrorists. I mean the plenary. Yes, we need a database on affirmative action, and as I speak now, I think we have been doing some good job with the equal opportunity to develop the national action plan on equal opportunities, which is actually on affirmative action. And then we have also the national equity and inclusion strategy. But agree with the mentorship that is very necessary for the boy child. And I love Rotarian. You see Rotarian Nsubuga here. And the boy child is on the agenda of chapter and the whole establishment. And you can see there is everybody is trying to make something to empower the boy child at parenting level. I agree with the submission. We need psychosocial support. A Justice Center's submission. We really need a lot of psychosocial support along the legal framework. But also to let you know that the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development established the Sauti. The Sauti is a hotline for GBV, and it is a one-stop center for DPP, the police, or the resident state attorney, wherever they are. Or everything is done, and investigations are done holistically, and the case is prosecuted. The mindset change, I agree with General Kulaiji about the mindset change. Financial year almost PDM. So it's an accident waiting to happen, unfortunately. I saw Minister of Works in round that they get the glimpse of this is that women who are empowered, actually, there's a research, and we can share this, who are empowered and have told, they start behaving like the man who is empowered. They start having late evening coffee with their dates or with the friends, late meetings in the night, and coming at midnight. Just exactly what the empowered is doing. When she gets empowered, she does exactly. And she also starts giving instructions. Yeah, how come there's no food at the table? You know, and that causes a lot of issues. We need a reality check to see how to take care of some of those. But also, of course, we agree there is a need for diversity. The first Muganda who was Chintu, and the mother was Nambi. But these people produced 3 children. People from the West came to come from Buganda as children. So I appreciate diversity. I really appreciate. So, but thank you so much, and thank you.
Resident judge too.
Thank you very much. I'd like to align my stars with the need to do some work on the boy child. You raised something very important. The girl child, you'll pick socks. But the boy child is not prepared to do anything for the girl child. That's why Mr. Commissioner is saying when girl child gets empowered, she becomes like a man. Because she is grooming, barely prepared to live with people. Because like the general stated, the boy child is there. We change that narrative and get a balance. I'm very optimistic. The empowered woman, Mr. Commissioner, will not behave like a man. Because the man at home, to align myself with, there's another lady who raised a concern on popularizing the referrals. When these women are victimized, there's not a lot of popularization about where they can go and where they are not. Like the Ministry of Gender. I'm hearing it for the first time that, you know, someone can get capitalized if they are mobilized into groups. We are all from some rural village. And I'm sure our people will qualify if this kind of service is popularized. Then finally, I'd also like, this goes to the security agencies. Please stop these selective arrests and accusations and then release without arraigning. It is marginalizing on the members of the. When Fatuma studies law, it means she's qualified to be an advocate. Don't look at the veil. Don't look at her 2 oranges. Look at Fatuma, the qualified advocate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fatuma. I now give the last word to our senior judge, Justice Batten. Tell them how to coexist. Educate us, please.
Let me begin with the last one because it was interesting that when the woman gets empowered, they behave like the men who are empowered. No, the men are not even empowered. They assume they're empowered. There is another I said at one time and said, we survive by the 3rd leg. We are not empowered. You can find a man not earning any income. So to think that the men are empowered, 0. We are stereotyping of the state to enforce them. That way, the ministry, each ministry will think hard on how to implement the gender programs in their ministry. I'm happy that we have gender budgeting for every budget to be passed. If you are talking about piped water, is it true that it will reach every rural woman, including my village in Kazigo? Maybe talk about boreholes and not piped water. And then we say, yeah, many more women and children use the boreholes. And then we say, who are the people on the water committee in the village? Because the men want the boreholes in the trading center where they see their women. But the borehole up on the hill will dry up very quickly. The women want in the valley where it doesn't dry up. And then the men say, adultery, water, adultery. Why did you dilute the well? If we are talking about gender in agriculture, the Ministry of Gender should not be importing tractors. How many women are using tractors? We plows and not the hand hose. Things like that. When we talk about culture, it is high time we teach our people. Is it teach or teach? Teach our people that culture is dynamic. True. That men are born the head of the family. So to think that the boy, whether educated or not, will be the head of the home is the myth we are having. He will adopt violent methods to assert his being the head of taboos. What they used not to eat, now they eat. Even if it means chasing the chicken and slaughtering, they do. The eggs, the insanity, the head of the fish. Culture is dynamic. It is not static. The Kabaka would do this, unlike the old ones who would sail with the young girls for defilement to Sese Island. Let's change our cultures and be innovative. I want to agree with the Virabwa. It is the women. The men to fetch officer. Yes, there is violence against men, but it is disproportionate. The largest number is of women and girls. So while we shout a lot, I think it's high time we're backing themselves. Do they put signposts at there? We put their signposts, go slow, men are at work. What are these other things the women are doing? If we appreciate them, and then we say these are gendered roles, these are natural roles, we'll find ourselves doing the babysitting, while the woman does the mandatory. So that whether you are doing engineering, whether you are doing those manly courses, you do gender, which cuts across gender and poverty. So that we know that the old man used to go hunting as a poacher. So how are you going to hunt? Being the breadwinner. We break down the word bread and say matoke. Yesu nadiro mugati nagumenyamu. Nabego mubumbo nagabula. See? Let's translate these words into context. The proverbs. Okay? Because the man is buying meat. No, let's put these things in context. For what we wanted, the axe, the wind has thrown. How shall we translate in gender terms? If you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. You say, don't light wildfires. Context, context, context. And we shall be able to question the existing law. I think it's the law that we have to change. Wanji, bail. We give with one to apply for bail doesn't necessarily mean that you have a right to, because bail has remained in the discretion of the trial judge, the trial magistrate. And if you think all of us are experienced, we are not. Fresh from Law Development Center, maybe the interpretation is that you don't agree with it. That for mandatory bail to be granted, you need A, B, C, D. But this is a constitutional right. From the head of the judiciary, or let's say the top management, how many will be released? That's why you have. We were discussing it in our recent conference of judges heading circuits. For me, in Iganga, I have a different story to tell. Yes, not cash. You have been in prison. We are looking at plea bargain and alternative justice systems. And it is traditional. Gunsinze, aliwa bitono. If you have been on remand for 7 years waiting for a judge in Iganga, and he recently came there with the 2 containers to establish a high court, why don't you take advantage of that and say, look, I've been there for 7 years, 10 years waiting for a judge. I am sorry. I'll not repeat it. And I say, you are sentenced to 10 years. The amount of time you have spent on remand. After all, the remand prison is the same as the prison for convicts. The same deity. The same whatever.
The uniform is different.
So what? That is sugarcoating the suffering in the prison. Now, I always tell the prisoners, we are all potential prisoners. Even me, today I'm on this side, but tomorrow I may wear the uniform yellow. Let me prepare perhaps for myself or my colleagues who will come here so that it is easy to get bail. Okay? So, I would appeal to all the judges and magistrates to consider that small, do I even allow you to? When I look at the file and there is no affidavit worth considering from the DPP, I write and say, the bail application is not opposed. Present your sureties. And I don't mind whether they are female or male. As long as they have a national ID, I'll know where to find you. Permanent place of abode. And whether you are represented or not, you are entitled to bail. Because legal aid is not provided for by the state mandatorily. State briefs are just peanuts. So I appoint a lawyer just by choosing one in court. So you represent this one, he's applying for bail. Why do we wait for funding which is not there? So for me, I would think, yes, the courts are causing congestion because, and the debate continues under that case of retired Colonel Kizza Besigye. You remember the Black Mambas? Yes, they were opposed to that. We are also saying, providing for the families. You imprison a mother, you have imprisoned the whole family. Now, the more visits we make to prisons, the more we learn about the plight of prisoners. There are so many people in prison who have no case to answer. But sometimes simply because they were unable to bribe their way out. Somebody says, I've read the file. There's no case against you, but about the way they calculate remission, I shall have a word with you. If I say you have been there for 1 year, and I sentence you to maybe 1 year and 3 months. If I say 1 year without taking into consideration the period spent on remand considered, then they say he's remaining with 1 month. Awareness, creating awareness. People are not fighting for their rights because they don't know them. Mutuongere sente tubasomese. Me, wherever I go for a church wedding, and they ask me to make remarks, hey, I speak about divorce. When I go at a funeral and we are talking, so the human rights defenders, come down to our villages. The resource persons are there. But in my village, the men are very violent. And they say, Batema, you get a radio na TV. I thank you for inviting me to share with you. I'll continue sharing with you. Sometimes I'm loud-mouthed. Sometimes I wonder whether I'm speaking to the people that matter. Let's continue talking to the people that take decisions in a society.
Thank you very much, Justice David. No wonder you've come to the conclusion, and I would like to request you to join me in applauding our panelists. Thank you very much, Commissioner Bernard Mujuni from Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. Thank you very much, Fatuma Kakoza, and thank you very much, Justice David Batema. To the audience, thank you for being a very good audience, and thank you for being patient. I think the right to food now has been encroached on.
Is now rolling in.
Please. I would like also to thank our sponsors, Uganda Human Rights Commission, with its partners, UNFPA, and Advocates Sans Frontiers. Thank you very much for organizing
Thank you so much. Please, let's stand up, because now we've started a long time. Let's stand up. Panelists, please stay there. My Lord, you can stand. My Lord, you can stand up. Yes. Now, in a big way, we're just going to just say a big thank you with one, three times, and that's it, okay? So 1, 2, 3, we go. 1. Okay. We are finished. Take a picture of the panelists. Commissioners, please come and also take a picture. Plus the partners, please come and take a picture with the panelists. And our slogan is 75. I think you'll agree that they've done justice to the theme. UDHR at 75, evaluating Uganda's progress in protection and promotion of human rights. Okay, there we are. 75. Official photograph, are we there? Okay, Bob, what are you doing? You're to reorganize, eh? Okay. Okay, Farida, you are between time zones. It's very hot in this tent. 5 minutes. Just summarize, way forward. Farida from ASF, where are you? And then Commissioner, acting for the chairperson, will close this meeting. Just give us another 10 minutes and we'll be good to go. Thank you very much, Bernard. Commissioner. Yes. Farida, 5 minutes, please. Thank you both. Thank you, Bernard.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Thank you so much, everybody, for your patience. Good afternoon, ladies and my case. I have noted a lot of points, but in the interest of time, I'll mention key this dialogue. The success of the dialogue, one key issue that has come out is that judicial activism remains one of the tools to address the imbalances in laws and policies that are not gender sensitive. So we need more judgments that interpret the laws progressively. We need also more sisters and more judges like Sister Batema. Then we need to tackle discrimination of all forms as provided under discriminatory tendencies. What has also come through is that there's need for holistic implementation of the laws and policies. We heard from the keynote speaker that laws on paper are not effective. The Constitution and the other laws should be deliberate in tackling discriminatory tendencies. In summary, we also talked about holistic empowerment. I know all stakeholders are doing something about empowerment in different ways, and we need to continue to perform our part. We need to embrace government programs that address discrimination practices and tendencies. We also heard about programs for economic empowerment that we need to embrace, especially gender parity. We need to enact pending laws, pending bills. The domestic relations bill has been on the table for so long, the legal aid bill, and the other bills that many people have mentioned about. We shall be taking. We shall have strategic roundtable engagements with the different stakeholders to engage on the different issues identified above. We know a lot is being done, a lot has been achieved, but we know that we can add more voices, input to what needs to be done in order to achieve gender justice. Then, of human rights, we understand that we cannot go far if we operate alone. So we shall continue to work with all stakeholders in the private and public sector to achieve promotion and protection of human rights, but also access to justice for women. That's what I could summarize in 5 minutes as Sheila is looking at me with that eye. Thank you.
Is coordinator programs at the ASF. Thank you so much. Now, in a very standing in for the chairperson of the Uganda Human Rights Commission, please welcome Commissioner to make his remarks, to appreciate, and then to close. Commissioner.
Have come to the close of this dialogue for celebrating the the Rights Commission. So we would like to thank the judiciary, which was represented at the highest possible level today by the Deputy Chief Justice, the German ambassador who was here. We also appreciate distinguished panelists, so, those who have just left now, we really want to thank you for coordinating our discussions at the dialogue here. Justice Batema, you said you are we have Commissioner Mujuni. I want to mention these ones. Thank you very much for your contribution, giving us a lot of good information related to dialogue. And I would like to thank my colleague commissioners from the Uganda Human Rights Commission, directors, participants. All of you have been a very good audience together. We do appreciate, as you have noted, the issues, recommendations, and matters that you've raised have been captured, and the team in documentation will produce a report that will be shared with all of us. And let's wait for that. The Prison Service, the Assistant Inspector General of the Assistant Commissioner General of Prisons, talking about the situation in the prisons. It is indeed alarming for those who had noted that there are so many inmates in there, many of whom should really not be there or should be gotten out faster than later. At the commission, we did Commissioner General in the last few weeks. We've also been inspecting places of detention across the country. And what you've noted is what we saw. Also, congestion is quite a big problem. To take it up, to take the courts to where the victims are, to the prisons, and handle those cases from there as one of the ways to reduce on the congestion in the prisons. I would like to thank protection and defense of human rights, so that when we come back next year in the same celebration, we should be reporting grand progress. We shall use today's situation as a baseline so that we can see how far we have worked hard. After all, we are celebrating to commit ourselves. I thank you very much. And all the other technical people supporting the dialogue, the media, we thank you very much, and we wish you we wish you a good year of doing your work for the delivery. Singular pleasure to declare this.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. We shall stand up for the East African Anthem one stanza and the National Anthem one stanza. Meanwhile, lunch is served. You have your coupons downstairs, Paradise Restaurant. If you have no coupon, please check with the reception. Thank you very much. God bless you. Happy holidays. The DJs, we don't know the East African Anthem, our generation. Or Uganda. Oh, let's do Uganda. 1, 2, 3, we go. Oh, Uganda, may God uphold thee. We lay our future together, we'll always stand. Lunch. The last panel, please come. The picture was not well taken.